The moment Alara's fingertips brushed the gel beneath the table, she knew she was touching death itself. Not hers, not yet, but someone's. The kind of death that comes without warning, without witnesses, without justice. In 3 minutes, the most dangerous man in the Harbor District would rest his hand exactly where hers had been. In 5, the poison would enter his bloodstream. In 20, Dante Volkov would be dead, and everyone in this restaurant, including her, would be collateral damage in a war they never chose. She had one chance to stop it, or one chance to run. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale travels. The Neptune's Crown wasn't the kind of place Alara Vance belonged, and she knew it every second she stood inside its walls. She'd worked in plenty of restaurants before, greasy diners where the coffee was burnt and the tips were thin, family joints where someone's grandmother ran the kitchen and screamed in Italian at anyone who moved too slow, even a casino buffet once where she'd learned to smile through the stench of desperation and cheap cologne. But this was different. The Neptune's Crown was money, old money, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. Everything here whispered wealth. The floors were polished marble that caught the low amber light like frozen honey. The walls were paneled in dark wood that probably cost more per square foot than Alara made in 6 months. Even the silverware had weight to it, real silver, heavy and cold, the kind that made a specific sound when it touched bone china. The glasses were crystal. The napkins were linen. The candles were beeswax, not paraffin, and they burned with steady flames that didn't flicker or smoke. Alara moved through it all like a ghost. That was her specialty, really, being invisible. 26 years old, and she'd perfected the art of not being noticed. Average height, average build, brown hair pulled back in a practical bun that never looked quite neat enough. Uniform pressed, but never perfectly crisp. Face that people looked at and then immediately forgot. She'd learned young that being forgettable was a survival skill, especially when you had the kind of debts she carried. Medical bills from her brother's accident 3 years ago. The ones insurance decided weren't covered because of some pre-existing condition clause buried in the fine print. $37,000 that might as well have been $37 million for all the difference it made to someone who made minimum wage plus tips. The collection calls had stopped 6 months ago, which should have been a relief, but wasn't. Silence from creditors just meant they'd moved on to other methods. So when the Neptune's Crown put out a call for temporary staff for a private event, cash paid same night, no questions asked, Alara had shown up 2 hours early with her best work shoes and a smile she'd practiced in the bathroom mirror. The event coordinator, a stick-thin woman named Margot, with severe black-framed glasses and a clipboard she wielded like a weapon, had looked her up and down once and said, "You'll do. Stay out of the way. Don't speak unless spoken to. And for God's sake, don't drop anything. Table service only. No bar. Mr. Volkov's people handle their own drinks." Mr. Volkov. Even the way Margot said it carried weight, like saying it too loud might summon something. Alara had nodded, taken her assigned station, and tried not to think about who might book out an entire 5-star restaurant on a Tuesday night. She'd figured it out within the first 10 minutes. The men came first. That should have been her first clue. Not guests. Security. 6 of them, maybe 7, dressed in dark suits that fit too well to be off the rack. They moved through the space like they were mapping it, checking sight lines, testing doors. One stood by the kitchen entrance. 2 flanked the main doors. Another positioned himself near the emergency exit that led to the loading dock. They wore earpieces. They didn't smile. And when they looked at the waitstaff, they looked through them, like furniture that happened to be mobile. "Jesus," whispered Marcus, one of the other temporary hires, a college kid working his way through community college. "Who the hell is this guy?" "Someone who doesn't want surprises," Alara muttered back. The guests arrived in waves after that. 30, maybe 35 people total. All men except for 3 women who looked like they cost more than the restaurant's annual lease. Designer everything. Dresses, shoes, jewelry that caught the light and held it. The men wore suits that probably had Italian names Alara couldn't pronounce. They moved with the kind of confidence money buys, the kind that says the rules are suggestions and laws are negotiable. But it wasn't until he walked in that the whole room changed. Dante Volkov. Alara didn't know his name yet. She'd learn it later when one of the security guys used it on his radio. But she knew what he was the second she saw him. Some people carry violence like a scent. Not the hot, sloppy kind you see in bar fights or domestic calls. The cold kind. The calculated kind. The kind that's already mapped out 6 moves ahead and knows exactly where the bones will break. He was maybe 40, though it was hard to tell. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark hair just starting to silver at the temples. He wore a charcoal suit with a black shirt underneath, no tie, top button undone. No jewelry except a watch that probably cost more than Alara's student loans. His face was all sharp angles and harder edges. Strong jaw, straight nose, eyes so dark they looked black in the candlelight. He didn't walk into the room. He entered it. There's a difference. The second he crossed the threshold, every conversation stopped. Not obviously. Not like someone had called for silence. Just this gradual fade, like someone turning down the volume on the world. People finished their sentences but didn't start new ones. Laughter died mid-breath. Even the security guys stood a little straighter. Dante moved to the center table, the largest one, positioned with clear sightlines to every entrance, and sat without ceremony. No greeting. No acknowledgement of the room watching him. He simply sat, and the world rearranged itself around the fact. 3 men joined him immediately. One was older, gray-haired, with the kind of face that had seen too much and stopped caring. The second was younger, nervous energy barely contained, fingers drumming the table. The third was thin and pale, almost skeletal, with eyes that never stopped moving. The rest of the guests took their seats at surrounding tables, forming a kind of outer ring around Dante's central position. Like satellites around a sun, or like a court around a king. Alara stationed herself at the service bar near the back wall, trying to be as small and unimportant as possible. This was supposed to be simple. Bring food when called. Refill water glasses. Clear plates. Collect her cash and leave. Don't get involved. Don't get noticed. Don't think too hard about who these people were or what they did when they weren't eating overpriced fish in candlelit rooms. But she couldn't stop watching. Not Dante. Looking at him too long felt dangerous, like staring at the sun. But the others, the way they moved, the way they spoke, there was choreography to it, patterns she couldn't quite name. The nervous guy at Dante's table kept glancing toward the door. The older gray-haired man had a phone on the table in front of him, face down, but close, and the security guys weren't watching the entrances anymore. They were watching each other. Something was wrong. Alara had good instincts about wrong. You develop them when you grow up the way she did. Mother who drank too much, father who left when she was 6, brother who'd gotten hurt because she'd been too slow to see the danger coming. You learn to read rooms, to feel when the air changes, to know when the smart move is to already be gone. She should have listened to those instincts. The first course came out 20 minutes later, some kind of crudo, thin-sliced fish arranged like art on white plates. Alara and the other waitstaff delivered them in synchronized silence, placing plates with practiced precision. Don't speak. Don't make eye contact. Don't exist. Dante didn't touch his food. He listened to the gray-haired man talk, nodding occasionally, eyes never leaving the speaker's face. When he did speak, his voice was lower than Alara expected, rougher, like gravel wrapped in silk. She couldn't hear the words from where she stood, but she felt them. Everyone at the table leaned in slightly when he talked. Even the nervous guy stopped fidgeting. The second course, some kind of risotto, came and went. Then the third, a short rib that had been braised for probably 8 hours and cost probably $80 a plate. The restaurant chef, a temperamental French woman named Colette, had been in the kitchen since dawn preparing for this event. Margot had mentioned it during the pre-shift briefing, voice tight with stress. Everything must be perfect. No mistakes. Mr. Volkov's expectations are very specific. Alara wondered what happened when those expectations weren't met. She was refilling water glasses at one of the outer tables, moving in that invisible way she'd perfected, present but not present, when she noticed him. A man sitting 2 tables from Dante's, mid-40s, salt and pepper hair slicked back, expensive suit but worn a little loose like he'd lost weight recently. He wasn't eating, wasn't drinking, just sitting there, hands folded on the table, watching Dante with the kind of intensity that made Alara's instincts scream. She'd seen that look before, on her brother's face, right before he'd done something stupid and desperate, right before the accident that had put him in the ICU for 6 weeks and left him with nerve damage that still made his left hand shake. desperation. That's what she was seeing. This man was desperate. She finished refilling the water glasses and moved back to her station, but she couldn't stop watching him. He shifted in his seat, checked his watch, glanced toward the security guy by the door, then quickly away. His right hand kept moving to his jacket pocket, then back to the table. Over and over. Nervous tick or nervous tell. 30 minutes passed. The main courses were cleared. Dessert menus were presented, though Elara noticed Dante waved his away without looking at it. Coffee was offered. Some guests began to stand, moving between tables, conversation shifting from formal to familiar. The rigid structure of the evening was loosening, becoming something more fluid. Dante remained at his table, still deep in conversation with the gray-haired man. The nervous guy had disappeared, bathroom, maybe, or outside for a smoke. The skeletal thin one was on his phone, thumb moving rapidly across the screen. The desperate man stood. Elara watched him move toward Dante's table, weaving through the clusters of standing guests. He walked with purpose, but not aggression. Casual. Like he was just making rounds, being social. But his hands were clenched at his sides, knuckles white. He stopped at Dante's table. Said something. The gray-haired man looked up, annoyed. Said something back. The desperate man shook his head. Spoke again, more urgently this time. Dante held up one hand, a small gesture, barely noticeable, but it shut everyone up instantly. He turned his head, looked at the desperate man with those black hole eyes, and waited. The desperate man talked. Elara couldn't hear it, but she could see it. The way his body leaned in, the way his hands moved, palms up, pleading. Whatever he was saying, he needed Dante to believe it, needed it badly. Dante listened without expression. Didn't interrupt, didn't react, just listened with that terrible stillness that seemed to be his default state. Finally, the desperate man stopped talking. The silence stretched. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Then Dante spoke. 3 words, maybe 4. Short, quiet, final. The desperate man went pale, like the blood had just drained straight out of him. He started to speak again, voice rising. Elara could hear it now, sharp with panic. "You don't understand, I can explain." One of the security guys appeared beside him, not touching, not threatening, just there, presence as warning. The desperate man looked around the room, wild-eyed, like he was searching for allies in a room full of enemies. Found none. Looked back at Dante. "Please," he said, loud enough that several conversations died. "Please, just give me Mr. Silvestri," Dante said, his voice carried without being raised, cutting through the desperate man's pleading like a blade through water. "You're making a scene." Silvestri. The name hit Elara like recognition she couldn't quite place. She'd heard it before. Recently. Where? The desperate man, Silvestri, stood there shaking, not with fear, with rage. His whole body vibrated with it, barely contained. For a second, Elara thought he might do something stupid. Flip the table, throw a punch, pull out whatever was in that pocket he kept touching. But he didn't. Whatever Dante Volkov was, whatever power he carried, it was strong enough to freeze a furious man in his tracks through will alone. "You'll regret this," Silvestri said quietly. Not a threat, a promise. "You're making a mistake." "I rarely do," Dante replied. Silvestri turned and walked toward the exit. The security guy shadowed him until he was out the door. Elara watched through the tall windows as he stood outside on the sidewalk, visible in the streetlight's yellow glow, both hands pressed to his face. He stood there for maybe 2 minutes. Then he walked away, disappearing into the Harbor District's evening shadows. The room exhaled. Conversations restarted, louder now, like everyone needed to fill the silence Silvestri had left behind. Dante returned to his discussion with the gray-haired man as if nothing had happened, business as usual. But Elara couldn't shake the feeling that something had just shifted. Some invisible line had been crossed, some dominoes set in motion. She'd learned to trust that feeling. Her instincts had kept her alive this long. The evening continued. More coffee. Brandy for those who wanted it. The guests began to thin out around 10:30, leaving in pairs and small groups. Mercedes and BMWs pulled up outside, sleek and dark. Handshakes at the door. Quiet farewells. The kind of exit that people with serious money and serious secrets make. By 11, Only Dante's table remained. Just him and the gray-haired man now, plus 2 security guys stationed near the doors. The rest of the waitstaff had been dismissed, paid in cash by Margot, with curt nods and no eye contact. Marcus had tried to thank her. She'd walked away mid-sentence. Alara should have left with them. Would have if Margot hadn't specifically told her to stay. Mr. Volkov may require something. Wait until you're dismissed. So she waited. Standing at her station by the back wall, being invisible, being patient, being whatever she needed to be to collect her money and go home. The gray-haired man's phone buzzed. He looked at it, frowned, showed it to Dante. Dante read whatever was on the screen, face unchanging, nodded once. The gray-haired man stood, made a call, spoke rapid-fire Italian that Alara couldn't follow. Hung up, said something to Dante. Dante waved him away. The gray-haired man left. Now it was just Dante at the table, staring at something in the middle distance, lost in thought. One of the security guys approached, spoke quietly. Dante shook his head. The guard retreated. Silence filled the Neptune's crown. Not comfortable silence. The kind that presses against your eardrums and makes you aware of your own breathing. Alara shifted her weight. Her feet hurt. She'd been standing for 6 hours straight, most of it on marble floors in shoes that were a half size too small. Her back ached. Her shoulders were tight. She wanted to sit down so badly it was almost painful, but waitstaff didn't sit. Not while there were still guests present, not while someone might still need something. So she stood, and she waited. And she tried not to think about the expression on Silvestri's face when he'd left, that look of contained fury and desperate planning. Tried not to think about how men like that, men with nothing left to lose, were the most dangerous kind. 15 more minutes passed. Dante remained at his table, occasionally lifting his coffee cup to his lips, but mostly just sitting there with that terrible stillness. The security guys didn't move, didn't fidget, didn't check their phones. They just stood, watching nothing and everything at once. Alara's attention drifted to the table itself. From her angle, 40 feet away, slightly elevated by the service bar's raised platform, she could see Dante's profile, the table's surface, the arrangement of empty plates and glasses that hadn't been cleared yet. Standard post-meal debris, wine glasses with burgundy dregs, coffee cups with brown rings, crumpled napkins. Nothing unusual. Except, Alara frowned. There was something under the table, not on it, under it, barely visible from her vantage point, but there. A smear of something on the underside of the table's edge, right where someone sitting at Dante's position would naturally rest their hand while leaning back. Probably nothing. Spilled sauce, dropped garnish. The Neptune's crown was 5-star, but kitchens were chaotic and accidents happened. Some careless line cook had probably brushed the plate against the table's edge during service. Nothing worth noting. But the color was wrong. Too clear, too reflective. It caught the candlelight in a way that food didn't, in a way that water didn't. Almost gel-like. Almost. Alara's heart stopped. Not gel, not food, not water. She knew what that was. 3 years ago, in the ICU, watching her brother seize and convulse while nurses jabbed needles into his arms and doctors shouted medical jargon. She didn't understand. She'd learned the word. Organophosphate, a pesticide compound, agricultural grade, banned in most countries but still available if you knew where to look and didn't care about legality. Her brother had been helping a friend repair an old warehouse. They'd found cans of the stuff in a storage room, vintage 1970s, labels peeling. Didn't know what it was. Didn't know you weren't supposed to touch it with bare hands. The doctors had saved him, barely. Atropine and pralidoxime administered fast enough that the nerve damage wasn't permanent, but it had been close, terrifyingly close. And the gel they'd shown her later, the same gel that had soaked through her brother's work gloves and into his bloodstream, had looked exactly like what she was seeing now, clear, viscous, catching light in that specific way. Contact poison. Absorbed through the skin, slow-acting enough that symptoms wouldn't appear for 15-20 minutes. Long enough for whoever applied it to be far away. Long enough for it to look like natural causes. Heart attack, stroke, sudden catastrophic organ failure. Especially in a man like Dante Volkov, whose stress levels were probably constantly elevated, whose lifestyle probably included enough risk factors to make any coroner check the natural causes box without looking too hard. Perfect assassination. No gun, no knife, no blood, No witnesses. Just a man who sat at a table, rested his hand in the wrong place, and died 20 minutes later looking like he'd worked himself to death. Alara couldn't breathe. She looked at Dante, still sitting there, still lost in thought. His right hand was on the table now, fingers drumming a slow pattern. Relaxed. Unaware. In maybe 90 seconds, when he shifted position or leaned back the way people do when they're thinking, that hand would drop to his side, would brush against the table's edge, would make contact with enough poison to kill him 3 times over. She looked at the security guys. Positioned wrong. Not watching Dante, watching the doors. They wouldn't see it happen. Wouldn't know until it was too late. She looked at the exits. Front door, kitchen entrance, loading dock. All watched, all covered. If she ran now, if she bolted, they'd grab her before she made it 3 steps. And even if she got away, even if she made it out, what then? She'd be the last person moving before Dante collapsed. The last person who could have done something. She'd be suspect number 1. But if she stayed silent, if she did nothing, a man would die. Right in front of her. While she watched. And it wasn't just Dante. The security guys would lock down the restaurant the second he went down. Nobody in, nobody out, until they figured out what happened, which meant Margot would be locked in. The kitchen staff still cleaning up. The 2 other waiters who'd been sent to the back for end-of-shift duties. All potential witnesses. All potential threats. All potentially disposable. Alara had lived in the shadows long enough to know how these things worked. You don't leave loose ends. You don't leave witnesses. And when someone like Dante Volkov gets assassinated, everyone in the blast radius becomes collateral damage. Her brother's face flashed through her mind. The way he'd looked in that hospital bed, skin gray, eyes rolled back, machines breathing for him because his own nervous system had forgotten how. She'd been too slow then, too cautious. By the time she'd realized something was wrong, by the time she'd called 911, it had almost been too late. Not again. Alara's hands were shaking, her pulse hammered in her ears. Every survival instinct she possessed screamed at her to look away, stay quiet, be invisible. Let someone else handle it. Let someone else be the hero. Heroes got killed. Heroes got noticed. And getting noticed in a room full of dangerous men was the fastest way to end up disappeared. But doing nothing, letting this happen, that would kill her in a different way. Slower, quieter. The kind of death that happened on the inside, where nobody could see it. She'd already watched one person she loved almost die because she'd hesitated. She couldn't do it again, even if the person was a stranger, even if the person was probably a criminal, even if saving him meant putting herself directly in the path of something she didn't fully understand. Alara made her decision. She took a breath, smoothed her apron, and started walking toward Dante Volkov's table. Her legs felt like they belonged to someone else. Her hands were numb. The distance between the service bar and Dante's table was maybe 40 feet, but it felt like miles. Each step was an act of will. Each step was a chance to turn back. She didn't turn back. The security guy by the door noticed her moving. His hand went to his earpiece, spoke quietly. The other guard's head turned. They were watching her now. She kept walking. Dante didn't look up. Still lost in thought, still drumming those fingers on the table. Still unaware that he was 90 seconds from contact with his own death. 30 feet. 20. 10. Alara's mouth was dry. Her throat felt like it was closing. Words were forming in her head, but they all sounded wrong, inadequate, insane. How do you tell a crime boss he's been poisoned? How do you explain? How do you make him believe you before his men decide you're the threat? 5 feet. She stopped at the table's edge, waited. Proper service protocol. Never interrupt a guest's thoughts. Wait to be acknowledged. Stupid protocol. Irrelevant protocol. But her body was on autopilot, following the rules because the rules were safe and known, and this situation was neither. Dante's fingers stopped drumming. He looked up. Those black eyes locked onto hers. Alara forgot how to breathe. Up close, he was even more terrifying, not because of his size or his obvious capacity for violence, because of his presence, the weight of him. Like standing too close to a barely contained explosion, like feeling the heat off something that might detonate if you made the wrong move. Yes? His voice was quiet, patient, but there was an edge underneath. A question that wasn't really a question. Alara opened her mouth. No sound came out. The security guys were moving closer. Not aggressive, not yet, but alert, ready. Dante's eyes narrowed slightly. Is something wrong? Everything is wrong. Alara forced her vocal cords to work, forced words through the terror closing her throat. Sir, she said. Her voice came out thin, reedy, not her own. I apologize for the interruption. Dante waited, didn't speak, just waited with that terrible patience. She couldn't say it, couldn't just blurt it out. The guards would grab her before she finished the sentence. They'd think she was crazy. Or worse, they'd think she was the threat. She needed to make him look, needed him to see it himself, needed him to understand without her having to explain in front of an audience. Alara's mind raced. Etiquette. Protocol. What would be normal? What could she say that wouldn't immediately flag as suspicious? I noticed something under your table, sir. The words came out in a rush. It appears to be a spill. I apologize. It should have been cleaned during service. If you could just... She gestured vaguely downward. Just be careful. It looks slippery. Weak. So weak. Would he even bother looking? Dante stared at her for 3 seconds that felt like hours, studying her face, reading something there. Then, without breaking eye contact, he said, Show me. Not a request, a command. Alara's heart nearly stopped. Show him? Get closer? Lean in? The security guys were right behind her now. She could feel them, twin presences radiating threat. She had no choice. Alara moved to the side of the table, praying her hands wouldn't shake too badly, praying her voice wouldn't crack. She leaned down slightly, gestured toward the underside of the table's edge. There, sir. Just under the rim. It's... And that's when she stopped. Because Dante had leaned back slightly, shifting his position to see where she was pointing, and his right hand, the one that had been drumming on the table, had started to drop, started to move toward the exact spot where the poison waited. Without thinking, Alara grabbed his wrist. Time stopped. The security guys moved instantly. Hands reached for her. Dante went rigid. And Alara realized, with crystal clarity, that she'd just laid hands on one of the most dangerous men in the city without permission, without warning, without any way to explain that wouldn't sound insane. She was already dead. She just didn't know it yet. But Dante's hand had stopped, inches from the poison, inches from contact. Alara looked at him. He looked back. Neither of them moved. Don't touch it, she whispered, so quiet only he could hear. Please, don't touch it. Something flickered in Dante's eyes. Not anger, not confusion, recognition, like he'd heard something in her voice, terror, sincerity, desperation, that cut through all the usual noise. He pulled his hand back, slowly, deliberately. Then he looked down, following the line of her trembling finger to the underside of the table. For a long moment, he was perfectly still. Then he spoke. One word. To the security guys, not to her. Light. One of them pulled out a flashlight, small, tactical, the kind that could double as a weapon, clicked it on, aimed it where Dante indicated. The beam caught the gel, made it gleam, made it obvious, made it impossible to misinterpret. Dante stared at it for 5 seconds. Then he looked at Alara. His face was unreadable. Let go of my wrist. Alara released him like he was on fire, stepped back, hands up, non-threatening. Please don't kill me. Please. Dante stood, slowly, calmly. He didn't touch the table, didn't touch the gel. He looked at the security guys. Get Marcus. Get the kit. Nobody touches this table. Nobody leaves this building. The guards moved immediately. One spoke rapid fire into his radio. The other positioned himself between Dante and the table, like the furniture itself was now a threat. Dante looked at Alara again. Really looked at her this time. Not through her. At her. How did you know? His voice was soft, deadly soft. Alara's mouth was so dry she could barely form words. My brother, 3 years ago. Same compound, agricultural poison. It looks exactly like that. I saw it and I knew. You knew, Dante repeated, like he was testing the words. You saw it from across the room, recognized it, came over here, grabbed my hand. When he said it like that, it sounded insane. It was insane. Yes, sir. You realize what you just did? Yes, sir. You realize what happens to people who lay hands on me without permission? Alara's legs were shaking so hard she thought she might collapse. Yes, sir. Dante studied her face. Are you armed? No, sir. Are you working for someone? No, sir. I'm just a waitress. Temporary hire. I needed the money. Do you know who I am? No. That was true. She'd heard the name Volkov, but she didn't know him. Didn't know what he did, what he ran, who he'd killed or ordered killed. Just knew that he was dangerous. That was enough. Something almost like amusement touched the corner of Dante's mouth. Not a smile, just an acknowledgement of irony. You just saved my life, he said quietly. You understand that? That poison. Contact absorption, slow acting, undetectable. I'd have been dead before dessert was cleared. You just saved my life. Alara didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know if she should say anything. So she just stood there, trembling, waiting for whatever came next. What came next was chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos nonetheless. More security guys appeared from somewhere. Maybe they'd been outside, maybe they'd been waiting in the kitchen. Alara didn't know. They swarmed the table, photographing it from every angle. One of them produced a testing kit, some kind of chemical analysis strips that changed color when they made contact with the gel. The strips turned dark purple almost immediately. Someone called for Colette, the chef. She came out of the kitchen looking annoyed until she saw the security guys surrounding Dante's table, saw the testing strips, saw Dante standing 10 feet back with his arms crossed. Her face went white. My restaurant, she said. Someone poisoned a table in my restaurant? Lock down the kitchen, Dante told her. Calm, matter of fact, like this was a routine annoyance. Nobody in or out until my people clear it. Check everything, plates, glasses, utensils. If anyone was here tonight who shouldn't have been, I want names. Colette nodded, too shocked to argue, and fled back to her domain. Margot appeared next, summoned by someone's phone call. She looked at the scene, security guys, testing kits, Dante standing apart, and immediately understood enough to be terrified. Mr. Volkov, I can assure you, save it, Dante cut her off. Get me the employee list. Everyone who worked tonight. Full names, addresses, background checks if you have them. Now. Margot practically ran to her office. Through it all, Alara stood frozen in place. Nobody had told her to move. Nobody had told her to stay. So she just stood there, watching everything unfold, waiting for someone to remember she existed and decide what to do with her. It took 20 minutes for Marcus, whoever he was, to arrive. Older guy, 60s maybe, with the weathered face of someone who'd seen too much and stopped being surprised by anything. He wore a rumpled suit and carried a silver briefcase. Didn't introduce himself. Just walked straight to the table, opened his case, and started running tests. Dante watched him work. Arms still crossed, face still unreadable. Marcus worked in silence for maybe 5 minutes. Then he stood, faced Dante, and said, Organophosphate derivative, military-grade variant, contact absorption, onset in 15 to 20 minutes, respiratory failure, cardiac arrest, massive organ shutdown, no antidote if administered this late. You'd have been dead before you made it to a hospital. Dante nodded slowly, like he'd already known, like he'd just needed confirmation. Who? He asked. Not who did it, who ordered it. Marcus pulled off his latex gloves, dropped them in a hazard bag. Placement is professional, application is precise. This wasn't amateur hour. Whoever did this knows what they're doing. I asked who. I test chemicals, Dante, not mines. Marcus closed his briefcase with a snap. But if I had to guess, someone who knew where you'd sit. Someone who knew you lean back when you're thinking. Someone who's been watching you. Dante's jaw tightened. The first real reaction Alara had seen from him. Silvestri. It wasn't a question. Marcus shrugged. He's got motive, he's got means, and he's got about 4 hours before you find him. He glanced at Alara for the first time. Who's this? She spotted it, Dante said simply. Marcus raised an eyebrow, looked at Alara with new interest. Spotted organophosphate gel from across a restaurant? In low light? That's impressive. Her brother, Dante said. Similar exposure. Ah. Marcus studied Alara for another second, then nodded. Good instincts. Most people wouldn't have recognized it until it was too late. He turned back to Dante. I'll take samples. Run a full analysis. You'll have a report by morning. I'll have Silvestri by morning, Dante corrected. Marcus gave him a look. Don't do anything I'd have to testify about. He left. The security guys finished their sweep, declared the rest of the restaurant clean, and started letting staff leave. Colette first, after giving Dante her personal assurance that she'd run every background check twice and fire anyone even remotely suspicious. Margot next, after providing a complete employee list and promising to cooperate fully with any investigation. The kitchen staff filtered out in nervous silence, probably not fully understanding what had happened, but smart enough to keep their heads down and mouths shut. Marcus and the other temporary waiters were allowed to leave after giving their information to one of Dante's people. A thin woman with sharp eyes who wrote everything down in a leather notebook and asked uncomfortable questions about what they'd seen, who they'd talked to, whether anyone had acted strangely. Through it all, Elara stood by the service bar, still waiting, still invisible, still unsure whether she was witness or suspect or something else entirely. Finally, after everyone else had left, after the security guys had cleared out and the testing kits had been packed away and the building was silent except for the hum of the kitchen's industrial refrigerators, Dante walked over to where Elara stood. She straightened instinctively, tried to look calm, failed miserably. Dante stopped 3 feet away, close enough to be intimidating, far enough to not be threatening. He studied her face again like he was reading a language only he understood. "What's your name?" he asked. "Elara Vance." "Elara Vance," he repeated, testing it. "You live in the city. East Harbor District, small apartment. Family?" "A brother, no one else." "The one who had the exposure?" "Yes." "He recovered?" "Mostly, some nerve damage, but he's alive." Dante nodded slowly. Then he pulled something from his jacket pocket. A business card, plain white, with nothing but a phone number printed in black ink. No name, no address, no company. Just the number. He held it out to her. Elara took it, careful not to let their fingers touch. "That number," Dante said, "reaches me directly. Any time, any day. You call it, I answer." Elara stared at the card. "I don't understand." "You saved my life tonight. That creates a debt. I don't like being in debt." He paused. "You need anything, protection, money, problems that need solving, you call that number. No questions, no strings. Consider it payment for services rendered." "I don't want payment," Elara said quietly. "I just didn't want you to die." Something flickered in Dante's eyes again. That same recognition from earlier, like he was seeing something he hadn't expected, something that didn't fit his understanding of how the world worked. "Why?" he asked. Simple question, complicated answer. Elara thought about lying, thought about giving some noble reason, some story that would make her sound brave or selfless or good. But she was too tired, too scared, too honest. "Because I watched my brother almost die once," she said, "and I couldn't do anything to stop it. I couldn't save him. The doctors did that. And I've had to live with that feeling for 3 years. The feeling that I was too slow, too stupid, too useless." She met Dante's eyes. "I couldn't live with it again, even for a stranger." Silence. Dante stood there for a long moment, just looking at her. Then he nodded once, sharply, like she'd confirmed something. "Keep the card," he said. "You'll need it." "Why would I?" "Because Silvestri didn't do this himself. He hired someone who was in this building tonight, someone who applied that poison while everyone was distracted. And when Silvestri realizes his plan failed, when he realizes someone warned me," Dante's voice was flat, factual, terrifying. "He's going to want to know who. He's going to look at the employee list. He's going to see temporary staff, and he's going to ask questions." Elara's blood went cold. "I can protect you," Dante continued, "but only if you let me. Keep the card. If anything happens, anything strange, anyone following you, anyone asking questions you don't like, you call that number immediately. Understood?" Elara nodded, couldn't speak. "Good." Dante pulled out a wallet, extracted $500 in cash, and handed it to her. "Your payment for tonight, plus a bonus for the inconvenience of almost watching a murder. Alara took the money with numb fingers. Go home, Dante said. Lock your doors. Keep your phone on. And Alara? He waited until she looked at him. Thank you. I don't say that often. Remember that I said it tonight. Then he walked away, leaving her standing alone in the empty restaurant, holding a card with a phone number and $500 she hadn't earned. Alara stood there for a full minute, trying to process what had just happened, trying to understand how a simple waitressing job had turned into this, saving a crime boss's life, being thanked by someone who probably killed people before breakfast, getting handed enough cash to cover 2 months' rent. Finally, she moved, put the cash in her pocket, tucked the card into her bra where it wouldn't get lost, walked to the door on legs that still shook. One of the security guys, the one who'd given her the flashlight earlier, waited by the exit. He opened the door for her, nodded once. No smile, no words, just acknowledgement. Alara walked out into the night. The harbor district air hit her face, cool and damp, carrying the smell of salt and fish and diesel fuel. The street was empty except for a few parked cars and the distant sound of traffic on the main boulevard. Normal. Quiet. Like nothing had happened. But everything had happened. Alara started walking toward the bus stop, hugging her thin jacket tighter against the chill. Her feet hurt, her head pounded, her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd saved someone's life tonight. She'd prevented a murder. She'd done something good, something brave, something that mattered. So why did she feel like she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life? The business card pressed against her skin, warm from body heat, feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Alara kept walking. Behind her, the Neptune's crown stood silent and dark, all its lights extinguished except for one, a single window on the second floor where a shadow moved against the glass. Watching. Always watching. The bus didn't come for 40 minutes. Alara sat on the bench under the flickering streetlight, watching every car that passed, cataloging every shadow that moved in the alleyways across the street. Her hand kept going to the pocket where she'd stuffed the cash, checking it was still there. Then to the card pressed against her ribs, feeling its sharp corners dig into her skin. $500. More money than she'd held at once in 2 years. Enough to make a dent in the collection notices that kept appearing in her mailbox with increasingly aggressive language. Enough to buy groceries that weren't ramen and day-old bread. Enough to maybe, finally, sleep without calculating whether she could afford both electricity and hot water this month. Blood money, whispered a voice in the back of her head. You took money from a criminal. You're involved now. She told that voice to shut up. When the bus finally arrived, wheezing to a stop with hydraulics that sounded like they were on their last legs, Alara climbed aboard and sank into a seat near the back. 3 other passengers scattered throughout. A teenager with headphones, an elderly woman clutching a shopping bag, a man in a stained construction vest who looked like he was fighting sleep. Normal people, regular people. People whose biggest problem tonight was probably a broken washing machine or an argument with their spouse. People who hadn't just prevented an assassination. The bus lurched forward, engine grinding, taking her away from the harbor district with its expensive restaurants and dangerous men. She watched the Neptune's crown disappear behind buildings, watched the neighborhood shift from manicured storefronts to industrial warehouses to the kind of low-income housing that zoning laws tried to hide but couldn't quite erase. Her apartment was in a 6-story building that should have been condemned in the 90s. Cracked concrete facade. Windows with cardboard patches where glass used to be. A front door that didn't lock properly because the frame had warped. The kind of place where nobody asked questions and nobody remembered faces because survival meant minding your own business. Alara trudged up 4 flights of stairs. The elevator had been broken for 8 months and let herself into apartment 4C. One room that functioned as bedroom, living room, and kitchen. Bathroom the size of a closet. Furniture from thrift stores and curbside finds. But it was hers. Mostly paid for. Safe enough. She locked the door behind her. Then locked the deadbolt she'd installed herself last year. Then wedged a chair under the doorknob the way her brother had taught her. Only then did she let herself breathe. The apartment was cold. Heat wasn't included in rent, and she kept the thermostat low to save money. Alara peeled off her work clothes, hands still shaking, and stood in her underwear staring at the business card she'd pulled from her bra. Just a phone number, 10 digits, black ink on white cardstock. Nothing special about it except what it represented. A direct line to Dante Volkov, a man who could probably have her killed with the same effort most people use to order pizza. A man whose life she'd saved. A man who'd said, "Thank you." Alara tucked the card into the drawer of her bedside table, underneath the stack of medical bills she couldn't bring herself to throw away. Out of sight, not out of mind. That would be impossible, but at least not staring at her. She pulled on sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, climbed into bed without bothering to brush her teeth, and lay there in the dark waiting for sleep that wouldn't come. Every sound made her flinch. The neighbor's television through the thin walls, footsteps in the hallway, a car backfiring somewhere outside. Her mind kept replaying the evening on a loop. Silvestri's desperate face, the gel under the table, the moment she'd grabbed Dante's wrist, the terrible stillness when she'd realized she might have just signed her own death warrant. "He's going to want to know who warned me," Dante had said. "He's going to ask questions." Alara pulled the blanket over her head like that would somehow protect her from the consequences of her own choices. She must have eventually slept because she woke to her phone ringing. The display said 6:47 a.m., unknown number. Her heart kicked into overdrive. She stared at the screen, frozen, while it rang once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th ring, she answered, "Hello?" Silence. Not empty silence, the kind where someone's on the other end but not speaking. Breathing. Listening. "Hello?" Alara said again, sitting up now, adrenaline burning through the fog of too little sleep. The line clicked dead. She sat there holding the phone, watching the call log, waiting for it to ring again. It didn't. 5 minutes passed. 10. Nothing. Wrong number, she told herself. Telemarketer, robocall, nothing. But she didn't believe it. Alara got out of bed, checked the chair was still wedged under the doorknob, checked the deadbolt, checked the regular lock. All secure. She moved to the window, 4th floor, view of an alley and the back of another apartment building, and looked down. Nobody there. Nothing unusual, just trash bins and a stray cat picking through garbage. She was being paranoid. Understandably paranoid, but still paranoid. Coffee. She needed coffee. And food. And to figure out what the hell she was going to do with the rest of her life now that she'd gotten herself tangled up in whatever web Dante Volkov and Marco Silvestri had spun. The coffee maker was older than she was and made concerning sounds, but it produced something brown and caffeinated. Alara sat at her tiny kitchen table, really just a card table with 2 folding chairs, and tried to think. She couldn't go back to the Neptune's crown. That bridge was burned just by association. Margot probably wouldn't hire her for anything ever again, not after last night, which meant she needed to find new work, which meant job hunting, which meant she needed to actually leave the apartment and face the world. The thought made her stomach clench. Her phone rang again, different number this time, also unknown. Alara's hand trembled as she answered. "Yes?" "Miss Vance?" Male voice. Older, unfamiliar. Professional tone that somehow made it worse. "Who is this?" "My name is Thomas Reeves. I'm calling on behalf of a mutual acquaintance regarding the matter from last evening." Alara's blood went cold. Mutual acquaintance, last evening. This was about Dante, about the restaurant, about... "I don't know what you're talking about," she said quickly. "I believe you do, Miss Vance. I'd like to meet with you, this morning, if possible. There are some questions that need addressing." "I don't have to answer anything. I didn't do anything wrong." "No one is suggesting you did." His voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that people use when they're trying not to sound threatening, which only makes them sound more threatening. "This is simply a conversation. Informal. Brief. I assure you, you're not in any trouble." Then why do you need to talk to me?" "Because we're trying to understand what happened last night, and you were present during a very critical moment. Your perspective would be valuable." "We." He'd said we. Who was we? "If you want to talk to me, you can call my lawyer," Alara said, even though she didn't have a lawyer and couldn't afford one. "Miss Vance, I strongly advise you to reconsider. The people I represent prefer to handle these matters quietly. Involving legal counsel tends to complicate things." There it was, the threat underneath the professional veneer. "I have nothing to say to you," Alara said. Her voice came out stronger than she felt. Then perhaps you'll have something to say to Mr. Silvestri directly. The name hit like a fist to the gut. Silvestri. The desperate man from last night, the one Dante had dismissed, the one who'd walked out looking like a caged animal planning its escape, the one who'd tried to kill Dante Volkov. I don't know anyone named Silvestri, Elara said. Of course you don't. Thomas Reeves didn't sound convinced. Nevertheless, he's very interested in speaking with you. As I said, this can be handled quietly and professionally, or it can be handled other ways. The choice, Miss Vance, is yours. Elara's mind raced. This was exactly what Dante had warned about. Silvestri looking for the leak, looking for whoever had ruined his perfect assassination, looking for her. She thought about the business card in her bedside drawer, the direct line, the promise of protection. But calling Dante meant admitting she needed him, meant owing him something more than she already did, meant stepping further into his world instead of trying to escape it. I need time to think, Elara said. You have 2 hours, Thomas Reeves replied. I'll call back at 9 o'clock. I suggest you have an answer ready. The line went dead. Elara sat frozen, phone still pressed to her ear, listening to silence. 2 hours. He'd given her 2 hours to decide whether to cooperate with the man who'd tried to commit murder or to call the other man who probably committed murders regularly. Some choice. She looked at the clock. 7:03 a.m. 2 hours meant 9:03 a.m. 120 minutes to figure out how to survive something she'd gotten herself into by trying to do the right thing. The irony would have been funny if she wasn't so terrified. Elara grabbed her phone, opened the drawer, pulled out Dante's card, stared at the number. Her thumb hovered over the keypad. No, not yet. Maybe there was another way. Maybe she could just disappear. Pack a bag, take the $500, get on a bus to somewhere else. Somewhere far. Somewhere neither Dante Volkov nor Marco Silvestri had ever heard of. And leave her brother? Leave her apartment? Leave the only life she knew, however shitty it was, because she'd made one impulsive decision? Her phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. Your brother lives on Maple Street, apartment 2B. Nice place. Ground floor. Easy access. Elara stopped breathing. Another text. A photo this time. Grainy, taken from across the street. Her brother's building, his window. The light on inside, visible through the curtains. They knew where Danny lived. They were watching him, right now. A third text. 9 o'clock, Miss Vance. Don't make us ask twice. Elara's hands were shaking so hard she nearly dropped the phone. They'd found Danny. They knew where he was. They were threatening him without actually saying the words, letting the implication do the work. She grabbed Dante's card again. This time she didn't hesitate. The phone rang once before someone answered. Not Dante. A woman's voice, crisp and businesslike. Yes? I need to speak to Mr. Volkov. Elara's voice cracked. My name is Elara Vance. He said I could call this number if... One moment. Silence. Then clicking. Then another ringtone, different from the first. Then Dante's voice. Elara. Not a question. He knew it was her, had probably known the second his people saw her number. They found me, Elara said, words tumbling out in a rush. Silvestri's people. They called. They know where I live. They know where my brother lives. They sent me a photo. They want me to meet them. They gave me 2 hours. Where are you right now? My apartment. Address. Elara gave it to him. Don't leave. Don't answer the door. Don't answer any calls except this number. Do you understand? They know where Danny is, my brother. They're watching his apartment right now. What's his address? She told him. I'll handle it, Dante said. Stay where you are. Someone will be there in 15 minutes. Who? What are you? Elara. His voice cut through her panic. Calm, steady, the way someone talks to a spooked animal. I told you last night I'd protect you. I meant it. Stay in your apartment. Lock the door. I'll call you back in 10 minutes. The line went dead. Elara sat there holding the phone, heart hammering, mind spinning. What had she just done? She'd called Dante Volkov. She'd asked a crime boss for help. She'd invited him into her life in a way that couldn't be undone. But what choice did she have? They were threatening Danny. Her little brother who'd never hurt anyone, who was still dealing with tremors in his left hand from the nerve damage, who worked 2 jobs to pay for the physical therapy that insurance wouldn't cover. She'd saved 1 life last night. She wasn't about to let someone take another to punish her for it. 10 minutes. Dante had said 10 minutes. Elara spent them pacing her tiny apartment, checking the window every 30 seconds, listening for footsteps in the hallway. The stray cat was still in the alley. A delivery truck rumbled past. Normal morning sounds, nothing threatening, but every shadow felt dangerous now. Every sound felt like a warning. Her phone rang, Dante's number. "Your brother is secure," he said without preamble. "I have people outside his building. No one's getting near him." Elara's knees went weak with relief. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me yet. We need to talk about what happens next. Someone's coming to get you. Young guy, dark hair, drives a black Audi. His name is Luca. He'll bring you somewhere safe so we can figure this out." "Figure what out?" "How to keep you alive." The bluntness of it hit like cold water. Keep her alive. Like it was an active question. Like staying alive was now something that required planning and effort and protection. "I didn't ask for this," Elara said quietly. "No," Dante agreed. "You just tried to do the right thing. And now you're learning why most people don't bother." There was something in his voice, not quite sympathy, more like recognition. Like he understood exactly what she was feeling because he'd felt it himself once. "Luca will be there in 5 minutes," Dante continued. "Pack a bag. Essentials only. You won't be coming back here for a while." "What about my job? My rent?" "I'll handle it." "You can't just—" "Elara," that steady voice again. "You called me for help. This is what help looks like. You can argue with me about the details later. Right now you need to trust me. Can you do that?" Could she? Trust a man she didn't know, whose business was probably illegal, whose solution to problems likely involved violence? Trust him with her safety, her future, her life? She thought about the alternative. Meeting with Thomas Reeves. Facing Silvestri's questions. Trying to protect herself against people who knew where she lived, where Danny lived, who could make them both disappear without anyone asking questions. "Yes," Elara said. "I can trust you." "Good. Luca will be there soon. Go with him. I'll see you in an hour." He hung up. Elara grabbed her old duffel bag from the closet and started throwing things in it. Clothes, toiletries, her laptop, chargers, the medical bills from the drawer because they felt important somehow. Proof that she existed, that she had a life before this. The $500 Dante had given her, the business card, though she didn't need it anymore. 5 minutes became 6, became 7. A car horn outside. Elara looked out the window. Black Audi, just like Dante said. Young guy getting out, dark hair, expensive jacket. He looked up at the building, checking addresses. That had to be Luca. Elara grabbed her bag, took one last look at her apartment, her crappy little studio that had been home for 3 years, and wondered if she'd ever see it again. She made it downstairs just as Luca reached the front door. Up close, he was younger than she'd thought, mid-20s maybe, handsome in that generic way that expensive haircuts and good genetics produce. But his eyes were older than his face, watchful, alert. "Elara Vance?" he asked. "That's me." "I'm Luca. Mr. Volkov sent me." He took her bag without asking. "Car's right here. We should go." Elara followed him to the Audi. Leather interior, spotless, the kind of car she'd never been inside before. Luca opened the passenger door for her, waited until she was settled, then went around and slid behind the wheel. They pulled away from the curb smoothly. Luca drove like someone who'd had professional training, confident, precise, constantly checking mirrors. They made 2 turns, then 3, heading away from her neighborhood toward the nicer part of the city. "Where are we going?" Elara asked. "Secure location. Mr. Volkov will explain everything when we get there." "Can you at least tell me if my brother's okay?" Luca glanced at her. Something softened in his expression. "He's fine. 2 of our guys are watching his building. Nobody gets in or out without us knowing. Your brother's probably having breakfast right now with no idea anything's wrong." "Good. That's good." They drove in silence for a while. Elara watched the city slide past the window. Morning rush hour starting, people heading to work, regular lives, regular problems. You really saved Dante's life last night, Luca asked suddenly. Alara looked at him. You heard about that? Everyone heard about it. Word spreads fast in our world. He shook his head. That took guts. Grabbing his wrist like that, most people would have been too scared. I was terrified, Alara admitted. But you did it anyway. That's the definition of brave. Luca took a left turn heading toward the waterfront. Dante doesn't forget things like that. You're in good hands. I mean that. Alara wanted to believe him. Wanted to think she'd made the right choice calling that number. But the knot in her stomach wouldn't loosen. They pulled up outside a building she recognized, one of the new high-rises that had gone up in the Harbor District 5 years ago. All glass and steel and money. The kind of place that had a doorman and a concierge and probably required 3 forms of ID just to get in the elevator. Luca parked in an underground garage, grabbed her bag, and led her to a private elevator. He swiped a key card. The elevator rose smoothly, no numbers displayed. When the doors opened, they revealed a hallway with exactly one door. Penthouse. Had to be. Luca knocked twice, then used another key card to unlock the door. After you. Alara stepped inside and stopped. The penthouse was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. Modern furniture that looked uncomfortable but probably cost more than her car. Kitchen with marble countertops. Living room with a view that made her forget to breathe. And standing by the windows, phone to his ear, was Dante Volkov. He looked different in daylight. Less intimidating somehow, though still dangerous. He wore dark slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up. No jacket, no tie. He looked almost normal. Almost. He finished his call, pocketed his phone, and turned to face her. Alara, thank you for coming. Like she'd had a choice. Luca, check in with Marcus about the Maple Street situation, Dante said without looking at the younger man. Make sure there's coverage for the next 48 hours, minimum. On it. Luca set down Alara's bag and disappeared back into the elevator. Then it was just the two of them, crime boss and waitress, protector and protected. Alara stood awkwardly by the door, not sure what she was supposed to do. Sit? Stand? Wait for instructions? You look like you haven't slept, Dante observed. I haven't. Not much anyway. Coffee? Please. He moved to the kitchen and Alara followed because standing alone in his living room felt weird. She watched him make coffee in a machine that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He worked with practiced efficiency, like he'd done this 1,000 times. Cream? Sugar? Black is fine. He poured 2 cups, handed her one. The mug was warm in her hands, solid, real, something to anchor herself with. How's your brother? Dante asked. You tell me. Your people are watching him. He left his apartment at 7:30, walked to the bus stop, took the number 6 downtown. My guys followed at a distance. He went into an office building on State Street, works as a data entry clerk for an insurance company. The detail of it surprised her. You looked into him. I look into everything. Dante sipped his coffee. He's 23, lives alone, has some physical therapy appointments twice a week, no criminal record, no debts except medical bills. He paused. You're close with him. It wasn't a question. He's all I have, Alara said. Our parents are gone. It's just us. Dante nodded slowly. That makes things simpler, fewer people to protect. The casualness with which he said it was chilling, like protecting people was just another item on his to-do list. Call the dry cleaner. Review the quarterly reports. Keep 2 civilians alive. Sit, Dante said, gesturing to the dining table near the windows. We need to talk about Silvestri. Alara sat. Dante took the chair across from her. Between them, the city stretched out in morning light, beautiful and indifferent. How much do you know about what happened last night? Dante asked. Just what I saw. That man, Silvestri. He came to your table. You dismissed him. He left angry. Marco Silvestri used to work for me, Dante said. 5 years. Good soldier, reliable. Then he got ambitious, wanted to move up faster than his skills warranted. Started making moves without permission, started thinking he was smarter than he is. He set down his coffee cup. Last month I found out he'd been skimming. Not much. Enough to notice. I gave him a chance to explain. He lied. So I cut him out. That's why he tried to kill you. That's why he tried to kill me. Dante's voice was matter of fact. Marco's problem is he thinks emotion is a strategy. He took the assassination attempt personally, made it about revenge instead of business. If he'd been smart, he would have disappeared, left the city, started over somewhere else. But he's not smart. He's desperate. And desperate men make mistakes. Like hiring someone to call and threaten me. Thomas Reeves works as a lawyer, handles Silvestri's legitimate interests, which means Marco's trying to do this quietly, officially. He wants to question you, figure out what you know, decide if you're a threat worth eliminating. Dante leaned back in his chair. He's hoping you'll cooperate. Make this easy. And if I don't? Then he escalates, goes after your brother to put pressure on you, or decides you're too risky to leave alive and handles it directly. Alara's hands tightened around her mug. So what do I do? You let me handle it. Handle it how? Dante looked at her with those black eyes. Do you really want to know? No, she didn't, because knowing meant being complicit, meant crossing a line she couldn't uncross. I just want to be safe, Alara said quietly. I want Danny to be safe. I want this to go away. It will. Dante's voice carried absolute certainty. By tonight, Marco Silvestri won't be a problem anymore. The weight of what he wasn't saying hung in the air between them. You're going to kill him, Alara said. I'm going to make sure he can't threaten you again. The method doesn't matter. It matters to me. Why? Dante asked. Not defensive, genuinely curious. You saved my life. That made you a target. Now I'm removing the target. Isn't that what you want? I don't want anyone to die because of me. This isn't because of you. This is because Marco tried to kill me and failed. You were just the variable he didn't account for. If anyone's responsible for what happens to him, it's him. The logic was sound. The morality was questionable. Alara didn't know how to argue with it. I didn't ask to be part of this world, she said. No one asks, Dante replied. But you're here now, and you have two choices. You can either accept my protection and let me do what I do, or you can walk away, refuse my help, and take your chances with Silvestri's people. He leaned forward slightly. But if you walk away, I can't protect your brother. He becomes collateral damage. Is that acceptable to you? Alara felt tears burning behind her eyes. Not acceptable. None of this was acceptable. She just wanted to stop someone from dying. That's all. One simple act of decency. And now she was sitting in a penthouse, drinking coffee with a man who killed people, discussing the best way to eliminate someone who wanted her dead. What happens after? She asked. After Silvestri's gone, what happens to me? You go back to your life, or you start a new one. Your choice. I'll make sure you have resources, money, references, whatever you need to disappear if that's what you want. And if I don't want to disappear, then you don't. You stay in the city, get a new job, move to a safer neighborhood. I'll make sure no one bothers you. Just like that? Just like that. It sounded too easy, too clean, but maybe that's how it worked in Dante's world. Problems were identified, solutions were implemented, life moved forward. I need to know my brother's safe, Alara said. That's all I care about. If you can promise me that, I'll accept your help. I promise, Dante said. No hesitation, no caveats, just the simple declaration. And despite everything, despite the danger, despite the moral ambiguity, despite the fact that she was trusting a man she barely knew, Alara believed him. Okay, she said. What do we do now? Now you stay here, Dante said. This apartment is secure. No one knows about it except my inner circle. You'll be safe here while I handle things. How long? A day, maybe 2. Depends on how quickly I can locate Marco. And my brother? Protected. I'll have people watching him around the clock until this is over. He won't even know they're there. Alara nodded slowly. Her coffee had gone cold. The morning sun was higher now, turning the harbor water into hammered gold. Can I ask you something? She said. Yes. Why are you doing this? I mean, I saved your life. But you already thanked me. You gave me money. You could have just let me take my chances. Why go to all this trouble? Dante was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer somehow, less guarded. Because you're right, he said. You didn't ask to be part of this world. You stumbled into it by accident, by trying to do something good. He looked out the window at the city. Most people in my world, they chose this life. They made decisions that led them here. But you just didn't want to watch someone die. That's rare. Worth protecting. I'm not special, Ilara said. You are to me. Dante turned back to her. You saved my life. That creates a bond. In my world, debts like that don't expire. They're permanent. So yes, I'm going to protect you. And your brother. Because that's what you do for people who risk everything for you without asking anything in return. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. This wasn't the cold crime boss from last night. This was someone else, someone who understood loyalty and honor in ways that most people had forgotten. Thank you, Ilara said quietly. Dante nodded, stood. I have to go. There are things I need to handle. Make yourself comfortable. Food in the kitchen. TV, books, whatever you need. Luca will be outside if you need anything. Don't leave the apartment. Don't call anyone. Don't post on social media. Complete communication blackout until I say otherwise. Understood? Understood. He started toward the door, then stopped, looked back at her. Ilara? Yes? It's going to be okay. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but I'm going to make sure you're safe. That's a promise. Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him, leaving Ilara alone in the penthouse with the view and the silence and the weight of decisions she couldn't take back. She sat there for a long time, watching the city wake up beneath her, wondering how a single moment of conscience had led her here, wondering if she'd ever feel normal again, wondering what normal even meant anymore. Her phone buzzed. She looked at it, expecting another threat from Thomas Reeves, but it was from Danny, just a simple text. Hey sis, want to grab lunch this weekend? Ilara stared at the message. Her brother had no idea what was happening, no idea that men with guns were watching him, no idea that his sister had saved a crime boss and was now hiding in a penthouse, while that same crime boss hunted down the man who wanted her dead. She typed back, Sounds good. Let's do Saturday. Normal. She could pretend everything was normal, for him at least. The reply came quickly. Cool. Miss you. Miss you too, Ilara typed. She set the phone down and allowed herself, finally, to cry. The crying didn't last long. Ilara had learned years ago that tears didn't fix anything, didn't pay bills, didn't change circumstances. They were just a release valve for pressure that built up when life squeezed too hard. So she let herself have 5 minutes, sitting at Dante's expensive dining table with her cold coffee and her brother's text message glowing on her phone screen. Then she wiped her face with the back of her hand, stood up, and decided to explore the cage she'd willingly walked into. The penthouse was bigger than it had looked at first. 3 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom. A study with built-in shelves that held mostly law books and what looked like financial ledgers. A gym with equipment that probably cost more than her entire apartment's worth of furniture. Everything was clean, organized, expensive, but it didn't feel lived in. It felt like a showroom, a place designed to impress, not to exist in. She found herself back in the living room, drawn to those floor-to-ceiling windows. 4 stories below, the harbor district was in full morning swing. Delivery trucks, tourists with cameras, people walking dogs. The Neptune's crown was visible from here, just a few blocks south, its elegant facade unchanged from last night. Like nothing had happened. Like assassination attempts were so common, they didn't even leave a mark. Her phone buzzed. Not Danny this time. Unknown number. Ilara's stomach dropped. She stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the decline button. But what if it was important? What if it was Dante? What if... She answered. Hello? Miss Vance? Thomas Reeves, that same professional tone that made her skin crawl. I believe we had an appointment scheduled for 9 o'clock. It's now 9:15. I'm disappointed you didn't answer my earlier call. I have nothing to say to you. I think you do. I think you have quite a lot to say. About last night, about what you saw, about who you spoke to. I was working, that's all. I served food and cleared plates. You also approached Mr. Volkov's table at a very critical moment, and shortly after, he discovered something he wasn't meant to discover. Quite a coincidence, don't you think? Ilara's heart was hammering. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't insult my intelligence. The professional veneer was cracking now, irritation bleeding through. We have security footage from across the street. We saw you approach his table. We saw him examine something underneath it. We saw the entire evening turn into a disaster because of you. Then you don't need to talk to me. You already know what happened. What we need, Miss Vance, is to understand why. Why did you warn him? What's your connection to Dante Volkov? Are you working for him? Did he plant you there? The paranoia in his questions told Alara something useful. They didn't know. They were guessing, trying to piece together how their perfect plan had fallen apart. I'm nobody, Alara said. I'm a waitress who needed money. That's it. Then you won't mind meeting with us to explain that in person. I mind very much. Thomas Reeves was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, the professionalism was gone entirely. Your brother takes the bus to work every morning, number 6, gets off at State Street, walks 3 blocks to his office. Very predictable routine. Creatures of habit are so easy to track, don't you think? Cold fear flooded through her. Leave him alone. That depends entirely on you. We can make this simple, Miss Vance. 1 conversation, 1 hour of your time. Answer our questions honestly, and we'll forget you exist. Refuse, and what? Alara's voice came out harder than she expected. You'll hurt someone who had nothing to do with any of this. That's your strategy? It's Mr. Silvestri's strategy. I'm just the messenger. Reeves sounded tired suddenly. Look, I'm going to level with you. Marco is not a patient man, and right now he's very, very angry. You cost him something important, something that can't be undone. The longer you avoid this conversation, the more convinced he becomes that you're Volkov's asset, and assets get eliminated. I'm under protection, Alara said before she could stop herself. Volkov's protection? Reeves actually laughed. How long do you think that lasts? A week? A month? Dante Volkov doesn't protect civilians out of the goodness of his heart. Once you stop being useful, once you become more trouble than you're worth, you're on your own. And then what? The question hung in the air because Alara didn't have an answer. Reeves was right about one thing. She had no idea how long Dante's protection would last. A day? Forever? Until he got bored? Until she owed him something she couldn't pay back? I'm not meeting with you, Alara said. Tell Silvestri if he wants to talk to me, he can go through Dante. She hung up before Reeves could respond. Her hands were shaking again. She'd just painted a target on herself, confirming what they suspected. That she was with Dante now, under his protection, part of his world whether she wanted to be or not. The phone buzzed immediately, same number. She declined the call. It rang again. Declined. Again. Declined. Then a text. You're making a mistake. Another. Last chance, Miss Vance. A third. Your brother leaves work at 5:30 p.m. Think carefully about your choices before then. Alara blocked the number with shaking hands. Then she called the only person she could. Luca answered on the first ring. Everything okay? No, Silvestri's lawyer just called, Thomas Reeves. He's threatening my brother. Says they know his schedule, know when he gets off work. 5:30 today. They're going to... I don't know what they're going to do, but... Breathe, Luca said calmly. We already have people on your brother. He's covered. But I'm telling Dante right now. Hold on. She heard muffled voices. Then Dante's voice, sharp and clear even through Luca's phone. Put her on speaker. You're on speaker, Luca said. Alara, what exactly did Reeves say? Dante asked. She repeated the conversation as best as she could remember, including the parts about being useful and protection not lasting. When she finished, there was silence on the other end. That's bold of him, Dante said finally. His voice had that dangerous edge again. Calling you directly. Threatening your brother. Marco's getting desperate. Can you protect Danny? Alara asked. Really protect him? He's already protected. But we're going to increase coverage. Luca, pull Marcus and Tony off the warehouse detail. I want 4 guys on Danny Vance starting now. 2 visible, 2 shadow. If anyone so much as looks at him wrong, I want to know immediately. On it, Luca said. Alara, listen to me. Dante's voice softened slightly. This is Marco trying to pressure you into making a mistake. He wants you scared. He wants you to panic and do something stupid like leaving the apartment or trying to run. Don't give him what he wants. Stay where you are. Your brother is safe, I promise you. How do you know? The question came out smaller than she intended. How can you be sure? Because Marco doesn't have the resources to move against me openly. He's working with what he's got. Lawyers making phone calls, empty threats, psychological warfare. If he had the muscle to actually touch your brother, he would have done it already, instead of wasting time with Reeves. The logic made sense, but logic didn't quiet the fear. What if you're wrong? Alara asked. I'm not. Absolute certainty again. But even if I was, even if Marco was stupid enough to try something, my guys are better than his guys. Your brother is safer right now than he's ever been in his life. Alara wanted to believe him, needed to believe him. The alternative was too terrifying to consider. Okay, she said. Okay, what do I do? Nothing. You sit tight, you trust me, and you let me handle Marco Silvestri. When will this be over? Soon. Very soon. The line went dead. Alara stood there in the middle of the living room, phone in hand, feeling useless and scared and trapped. She'd called for help. Dante had responded. His people were protecting Danny. Everything was supposedly under control. So why did she feel like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting to fall? The rest of the morning crawled by. Alara tried to distract herself. She found food in the kitchen, expensive stuff she didn't recognize, imported cheeses and crackers that probably cost $20 for a tiny box. She ate without tasting. She turned on the TV and flipped through channels without seeing them. She picked up a book from the shelf in the study and read the same page 4 times without absorbing a single word. At noon, Luca knocked and entered with a bag from some deli. Figured you might be hungry. Real food, not whatever's in the fridge. Thanks. Alara took the bag. Sandwiches, chips, a bottle of juice. Normal food. It made her want to cry again. Any updates? She asked. Your brother had lunch at his desk. Leftover pasta. One of our guys confirmed he's fine. Doesn't know he's being watched. Just another Tuesday for him. And Silvestri? Luca's expression closed off. Dante's handling it. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you. He wasn't being mean about it, just honest. Some things are need to know, and right now you don't need to know the details. Because I might object? Because I might not like how Dante handles things? Because knowing makes you complicit, Luca said quietly. Dante's trying to protect you from that, from being part of this more than you already are. Alara set down the bag of food. I'm already part of it. I saved his life. I'm hiding in his apartment. I've accepted his protection. How much more involved can I get? You'd be surprised. Luca moved to the window, looked out at the harbor. There's levels to this life. Right now you're on the edge, close enough to be protected, but far enough to walk away clean when it's over. Dante wants to keep you there. The deeper you go, the harder it is to get out. Maybe I don't want to get out. The words surprised her as much as they seemed to surprise Luca. He turned to look at her, eyebrows raised. You don't mean that, he said. Don't I? What exactly do I have to go back to? Minimum wage jobs, a crappy apartment, medical debt I'll never pay off. Wondering every month if I can afford rent and food. That's supposed to be better than this? This comes with a price, Luca said carefully. Money, protection, security. None of it's free. Eventually Dante will need something from you. A favor. Information. Your silence about something you shouldn't have seen. And you'll owe him. You'll always owe him. Is that the life you want? Alara thought about it. Really thought about it. The past 12 hours had been terrifying. But they'd also been the first time in years she'd felt like someone gave a damn whether she lived or died. Dante had mobilized people, resources, protection, all for her. Because she'd done one decent thing, because she'd saved his life. I don't know what I want, she admitted. I just know I'm tired of being invisible, of not mattering, of struggling just to exist. Luca studied her for a long moment. Be careful what you wish for. Visibility in this world cuts both ways. He left her alone with that thought and the bag of sandwiches she no longer wanted. The afternoon stretched into evening. Alara paced. She sat. She paced again. She checked her phone obsessively, waiting for updates that didn't come. At 5 o'clock, she texted Danny. How was work? He responded immediately. Boring as usual, Boss is being a jerk about the Henderson account. How's your day? Quiet, just taking it easy. You feeling okay? You never take it easy. Just tired. Long week. Okay. Let me know if you need anything. Will do. Love you? Love you too, sis. 5:30 came and went, the time Reeves had mentioned, the time Danny would be leaving work. Alara stood at the window, staring down at the street, looking for threats that might not even exist. Her phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts, no updates from Luca or Dante. At 6 o'clock, unable to stand it anymore, she called Luca. Your brother got home 15 minutes ago, Luca said before she could ask. Took the bus, stopped at a convenience store for milk and a newspaper, went straight to his apartment. He's inside now, probably making dinner. Everything's fine. Alara's legs went weak. She sat down hard on the couch. Thank you. I'm sorry for calling. Don't apologize. You're worried. That's normal. But you have to trust us. We know what we're doing. I'm trying. I know. His voice gentled. Dante will be back soon. He'll have answers. Just hang in there a little longer. Easier said than done. But Alara tried. She forced herself to eat half a sandwich. She took a shower in one of the guest bathrooms, standing under water pressure that felt like a massage, using soap that probably cost more than her entire toiletry budget for a year. She found clothes in her duffel bag, sweatpants and a t-shirt, the closest thing to comfortable she'd packed, and changed into them. By 7 o'clock, exhaustion was winning over anxiety. She hadn't really slept last night. The adrenaline crash was hitting hard. She curled up on the couch, telling herself she'd just rest her eyes for a minute. She woke to the sound of the elevator. The penthouse was dark except for the city lights coming through the windows. She'd been asleep for, she checked her phone, 3 hours. It was past 10. The elevator doors opened and Dante stepped out, followed by 2 men she didn't recognize. They were talking in low voices, something about logistics and timing. Then Dante noticed her sitting up on the couch. We'll finish this tomorrow, he said to the men. They nodded and left via the elevator. Then it was just the 2 of them in the semi-darkness. Dante looked tired. More than tired. Worn. Like he'd been dealing with something heavy and complicated. He shrugged out of his jacket, loosened his tie, moved to the kitchen and poured himself a drink from a bottle on the counter. Whiskey, maybe. Something amber and strong. Sorry for waking you, he said. It's fine. I shouldn't have fallen asleep. Alara stood, suddenly self-conscious about her sweatpants and messy hair. Is it done? Is Danny safe? Dante took a long drink. Your brother is safe. Silvestri is no longer a problem. The way he said it made something cold settle in Alara's chest. What does that mean? It means what I said last night. He can't threaten you anymore. Because he's dead. Dante looked at her. Because he's removed from the equation. The method doesn't... It matters, Alara interrupted. I told you before. It matters to me. Dante was quiet for a moment. Then he set down his glass and came around the counter, stopping a few feet from where she stood, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. Marco Silvestri is gone, he said carefully. He left the city, permanently. He won't be coming back. Neither will Thomas Reeves or anyone else who worked for him. They've been convinced that pursuing this matter further would be unwise. Convinced how? Conversation, negotiation, an understanding was reached. You're lying, Alara said, not accusatory, just stating fact. Dante's expression didn't change. I'm protecting you from knowledge you don't need. Because you killed him. Does it matter? Dante asked. Really matter? He tried to kill me. He threatened you and your brother. He was a problem that needed solving. I solved it. You're safe now. Your brother's safe now. That's what you wanted, isn't it? Not like this. Then how? Dante's voice sharpened. You want me to call the police? File a report? Let the legal system handle a man who tried to poison me in a public place? You think that ends well for anyone? You think Marco goes quietly to prison and forgets you exist? He shook his head. That's not how this world works, Alara. You know that. You've known that since the moment you grabbed my wrist last night. He was right. She had known, had understood on some level that stepping into Dante's world meant accepting its rules, its methods, its brutal efficiency. but knowing intellectually was different from facing it directly. "I just wanted to save your life," she said quietly. "That's all. I didn't want anyone else to die because of it." "This isn't because of you," Dante said for the second time. Marco sealed his fate the moment he put that poison under the table. "You were just the variable he didn't account for. If you'd done nothing, I'd be dead and he'd be taking over my territory right now. Instead, I'm alive and he's..." He stopped. "Gone. He's gone." Elara wrapped her arms around herself. The penthouse suddenly felt too big, too cold. "What happens now?" "Now you rest. Tomorrow we figure out next steps. Where you want to go, what you want to do. I'll help you however you need, but tonight you sleep, actual sleep, in a bed. The guest room on the left is yours, clean sheets, everything you need." "I don't think I can sleep." "Try anyway." Dante picked up his drink again. "We're done with the dangerous part. Tomorrow's just logistics." Elara wanted to believe him, wanted to think the worst was over. But something in his tone told her he was trying to convince himself as much as her. "Dante?" He looked at her. "Thank you," she said, "for protecting Danny, for keeping your promise." Something flickered in his expression, almost like pain. "I don't break promises. Remember that." She went to the guest room because she didn't know what else to do. It was smaller than the master, but still nicer than anywhere she'd ever slept. King bed with a duvet that felt like sleeping in a cloud. Blackout curtains, attached bathroom with heated floors. The kind of luxury she'd only seen in magazines. Elara climbed into bed, still wearing her sweatpants and t-shirt, too tired to care about proper sleep clothes. The sheets smelled like expensive detergent. The pillows were the perfect softness. She should have passed out immediately. Instead, she lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking about Marco Silvestri, wondering if he'd had family, wondering if somewhere right now, someone was wondering why he wasn't answering his phone, wondering what gone really meant and whether she'd ever get a straight answer. She must have eventually slept because she woke to sunlight streaming through a gap in the curtains. Her phone said 8:30. Morning. A new day. The dangerous part was supposedly over. Elara got up, splashed water on her face in the bathroom, and ventured out to find Dante sitting at the dining table with coffee and a laptop. He looked better than last night, showered, shaved, wearing fresh clothes, back to being the controlled, composed version of himself. "Morning," he said without looking up from whatever he was reading. "Morning." Elara moved to the kitchen, found the coffee maker. Dante had already made a pot. She poured herself a cup, added cream this time, and stood there, not knowing what to do. "Sit," Dante said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "We need to talk." Elara sat. Her stomach was knotted with anxiety again. Dante closed his laptop, gave her his full attention. Marco Silvestri had connections. People who worked for him, people who owed him, people who might decide to continue what he started. Most of them will back off now that he's gone. The smart ones understand that coming after you means coming after me, but there's always someone who thinks they're the exception. "So I'm still in danger." "No, you're protected, but you need to be smart, which means we need to decide what happens next. You have options." "What kind of options?" "Option 1. You stay in the city. I set you up with a new apartment, better neighborhood, security measures in place. You get a new job, something legitimate, safe, well-paying. I make sure everyone knows you're under my protection. You live your life, but you're visible. Part of my world, even if just at the edges." Elara processed that. "And option 2? "Option 2, you leave. I give you money, enough to start over somewhere else. New city, new name if you want it. Clean break. You disappear and no one from this world ever finds you. Your brother can come with you or stay. His choice. But either way, he's protected." "And option 3? Dante smiled slightly. "There is no option 3. Those are your choices. Stay visible under my protection or disappear completely." "What do you think I should do?" "That's not my decision to make." "But you have an opinion." He was quiet for a moment, considering. "I think you should disappear. Take the money. Start fresh. Get away from all of this while you still can. This world, my world, it's not kind to people who stumble into it. It changes you, makes you hard in ways you don't want to be. You're still good, Elara, still decent. That's rare. I'd hate to see it corrupted." The honesty of it surprised her. She'd expected him to push for option one, to keep her close, to maintain the connection. Instead, he was telling her to run. But, she said, because there was clearly a but coming. But if you stay, Dante continued, if you choose to be part of this world, I'll make sure you're taken care of. I'll teach you how to navigate it, how to protect yourself, how to use the power that comes with being associated with me. You won't just be under my protection, you'll be part of my organization. That comes with benefits. And responsibilities. What kind of responsibilities? The kind we'll discuss if you choose to stay, but not before. I'm not going to dangle carrots to manipulate your decision. You need to choose based on what you want, not what I need. Alara sipped her coffee, buying time to think. Option one was safety, but visibility. Option two was freedom, but isolation. Both had appeal. Both had risks. The question was which risk she could live with. Can I ask you something? She said. Yes. Why do you care? I mean, really care. You say you owe me for saving your life, but you've already repaid that debt. You protected Danny. You dealt with Silvestri. You could wash your hands of me right now and we'd be even. So why offer me options? Why give me choices? Dante leaned back in his chair, studying her face like he was reading something written there in invisible ink. You remind me of someone, he said finally. Someone I used to know. Someone who tried to do the right thing in a world that punishes you for it. He paused. She didn't make it. I couldn't protect her. And I've regretted that for 15 years. So when I see someone like you, someone who acts on conscience instead of self-preservation, I want to make sure you survive what she didn't. The raw honesty in his voice made Alara's chest tight. She'd expected calculation, strategy. Instead, she was hearing something painfully human. What happened to her? Alara asked softly. She got caught in crossfire. Wrong place, wrong time. Tried to help someone she shouldn't have helped. Dante's jaw tightened. I was 17, stupid. Thought I was invincible. Got into something I couldn't handle, and she paid the price. My sister. Elena. The name hung in the air between them. Elena. Alara. Close enough that she understood why he'd taken such immediate interest in protecting her. I'm sorry, Alara said. Don't be. Just make better choices than she did. Than I did. He picked up his coffee. Think about what you want. Really want. Not what you think you should want. Not what's safest. What you actually want. Take your time. I'm not rushing you. Alara nodded. Finished her coffee. Went back to the guest room to think. The decision should have been obvious. Take the money. Disappear. Start over somewhere clean and far away. It was the smart choice, the safe choice, the choice that let her keep her conscience intact. But she thought about her life before last night. The invisibility, the struggle, the constant fear of collection agencies and eviction notices, and wondering if she'd still be treading water or finally drowning when she turned 30. That life was safe in its own way. Small, predictable, survivable. But was survival enough? Dante was offering her something different. Not safety, exactly, but significance. A chance to matter, to be seen, to have power in a world that had spent 26 years telling her she had none. It was tempting in ways she didn't want to examine too closely. Her phone rang. Danny. She answered. Hey, wanted to check on you, he said. You sounded off yesterday. I'm fine. Just dealing with some stuff. What kind of stuff? Job stuff. Thinking about making some changes. Good changes or bad changes? Alara looked around the guest room with its expensive furniture in view of the harbor. I don't know yet. Still figuring it out. Well, whatever you decide, I'm here. You know that, right? I know. Her voice cracked slightly. I love you, Danny. Love you too. You're kind of freaking me out, though. You sure you're okay? I'm sure. I'll explain everything soon. I promise. They talked for a few more minutes about nothing important. His job, his physical therapy, some show he was watching, normal conversation, normal life. The life Alara could have if she chose option 2. After they hung up, she sat on the bed and made her decision. She found Dante still at the dining table, now on the phone speaking rapid Italian. He ended the call when he saw her. I've decided, Alara said. Tell me. She took a breath, let it out, committed. I'm staying. Dante didn't react immediately. He just looked at her with those dark eyes, measuring something she couldn't name. The silence stretched long enough that Alara started second-guessing herself, started wondering if she'd made a mistake, started forming the words to take it back. "You're sure?" he said finally. Not a question. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." Something almost like approval flickered across his face. "Good. Certainty is overrated. It makes people careless." He gestured to the chair she'd occupied earlier. "Sit. We need to establish ground rules." Alara sat. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. That felt significant somehow. Dante folded his hands on the table. "Rule 1. You don't lie to me. Ever. I don't care how bad the truth is, I need to hear it. Lies get people killed in this world. Honesty keeps you alive. Okay? Rule 2. You follow my instructions without question. If I tell you to leave a room, you leave. If I tell you not to speak, you stay silent. There will be times when you don't understand why I'm asking something. Trust that I have reasons." That sounds like blind obedience. It's survival. Dante's voice was flat. "I've been doing this for 20 years. You've been in this world for 2 days. Your instincts aren't trained yet. They will be. But until then, you defer to mine." Alara wanted to argue, wanted to push back against the idea of surrendering her autonomy. But he was right. She knew nothing about how this world worked. Fighting him on it would be stupid pride. "Fine," she said. "What's rule 3? You keep your brother separate from this. He doesn't know what you do. He doesn't know who you work for. As far as Danny's concerned, you got a new job with better pay. That's it. The less he knows, the safer he is." That one hurt. Keeping secrets from Danny felt wrong. But the alternative, dragging him into danger, felt worse. "Agreed," Alara said. "Anything else?" "Yes. You remember that you chose this. There will be days when it gets hard, when you see things you wish you hadn't, when you're scared or tired or questioning everything. On those days, you remember this was your decision. Nobody forced you. You walked through the door willingly." The weight of that settled on her shoulders. He was right. She could have disappeared, could have taken the money and run. Instead, she'd chosen to stay. Whatever came next was hers to own. "I understand," she said. Dante nodded. "Good. Now let's talk about what you're actually going to do." "I thought you'd tell me that." "Eventually, but first I need to know what skills you have, what you're good at." Alara almost laughed. "I'm a waitress. I serve food and smile at customers. Not exactly a valuable skill set for organized crime." You noticed a clear gel on the underside of a table from 40 feet away in low light. You recognized it as poison when most people wouldn't have seen it at all. You assessed a dangerous situation, made a split-second decision, and saved my life. Dante leaned forward slightly. "Those are valuable skills: observation, analysis, action under pressure. So I'll ask again. What are you good at?" Alara thought about it. Really thought about it instead of deflecting with self-deprecation. "I notice things," she said slowly. "Details other people miss. Body language. Inconsistencies. When someone's lying or nervous or hiding something, I'm good at reading people." "What else?" "I'm good at being invisible, at blending in. People forget I'm there." "That's useful. Continue." "I'm organized. I remember things, conversations, faces, small details that seem unimportant but aren't, and I'm stubborn. When I commit to something, I don't quit." Dante was quiet for a moment, processing. "You just described a very good intelligence asset. Someone who can observe without being noticed, who remembers details, who can read intentions. That's valuable. Very valuable. You want me to spy on people? I want you to do what you're already naturally good at, just with purpose." He stood, moved to the window. "My organization runs on information. Who's making moves? Who's forming alliances? Who's planning to betray who? The more I know, the better I can position myself. Right now I have people in various places feeding me intelligence. But most of them are obvious. Guards, enforcers, people who stand out. You? You're invisible. That's an advantage." Alara followed him to the window, stood beside him looking out at the harbor. "Where would I be? What would I be doing?" "Initially, learning. You need to understand how this world works before I put you in the field. How power flows. Who the players are. What matters, and what's just noise. That takes time." "How much time?" Depends on you. Some people never get it. Some catch on quickly. He glanced at her. My guess? You'll be ready in a few months. Maybe less. Months. The timeline made it real in a way it hadn't been before. This wasn't temporary. Wasn't a quick favor repaid. This was a commitment. A new life. What about money? Ilara asked. Housing. I can't exactly go back to my apartment. You'll stay here for now. This penthouse is secure and rarely used. Once you're trained, I'll set you up somewhere else. As for money, he named a figure that made Ilara's breath catch. Monthly. More than she'd made in 6 months as a waitress. That's too much, she said automatically. That's market rate for someone in your position. You're not a waitress anymore, Ilara. You're an asset. Assets get compensated accordingly. An asset. Not an employee, not a friend. An asset. The clinical nature of it should have bothered her. Instead, it felt oddly freeing. Clear expectations. Clear value. No pretense of something it wasn't. When do I start? She asked. Now. Dante moved back to the table, opened his laptop. First lesson, understanding the landscape. The Harbor District has 3 major players. Me, the Kowalski family on the north side, and the Chen Syndicate to the east. We maintain an uneasy balance. Everyone stays in their territory. Nobody rocks the boat. Marco Silvestri tried to upset that balance by taking me out. Now, there's a vacuum where he used to be. His territory, his businesses, his people. And you're going to fill it. I'm going to absorb what's useful and eliminate what isn't. But so are the Kowalskis and the Chens. Everyone's positioning, testing boundaries, seeing who moves first. He pulled up a map on the screen, the Harbor District color-coded into territories. This is where we are now. Blue is mine, red is Kowalski, green is Chen. The gray areas are disputed or neutral. Your job, once you're ready, will be to operate in those gray areas, to observe, to report, to help me understand what's happening before anyone else does. Ilara studied the map. It looked like a game board. Territory as property, people as pieces. She wondered how many lives had been lost establishing those color-coded boundaries. What happened to Silvestri's people? She asked. The ones who worked for him. Most scattered. Some approached me looking for work. I accepted a few, rejected the rest. The ones I rejected either went to the Kowalskis or left the city entirely. That's how it works. When a player falls, their pieces get redistributed. And Thomas Reeves? The lawyer? Dante's expression hardened. Reeves made the mistake of threatening you directly, after I'd made it clear you were under my protection. That's not something I can overlook. Is he dead too? No, he's alive. Terrified, but alive. I wanted him that way. As a message. He's currently explaining to anyone who'll listen that Ilara Vance is off limits. That touching you means dealing with me. Fear spreads faster than violence sometimes. The calculated nature of it made Ilara's stomach twist. But she'd chosen this. Chosen to be part of a world where people were messages and fear was currency. Show me, she said. Show me how this works. Teach me what I need to know. Dante smiled, actually smiled. That's the right attitude. Come on. He spent the rest of the morning teaching her the basics. Not the violent parts, not yet, anyway, but the structural parts. How territories were maintained through a combination of legitimate businesses and illegal operations. How money flowed through shell companies and offshore accounts. How disputes were mediated through sit-downs and negotiations before they escalated to violence. How reputation mattered more than force because force was expensive and reputation was self-sustaining. Ilara listened, absorbed, asked questions. Some of it was familiar from movies and TV shows. Most of it was completely different from the Hollywood version. Less dramatic, more bureaucratic. Organized crime turned out to be heavily organized and only occasionally crime-focused. The illegal stuff funded the legitimate operations, which in turn provided cover and respectability. It was an ecosystem. Ugly, yes. Brutal, absolutely. But functional in ways she hadn't expected. You look surprised, Dante observed during a break for lunch. I thought it would be more, I don't know, violent. Violence is the last resort, not the first. It's expensive, draws attention, creates enemies. Most of what I do is negotiation and information management. The threat of violence is usually enough. He poured them both water from a pitcher. That said, when violence is necessary, it needs to be decisive, overwhelming, so there's no question about doing it again. Like with Silvestri. Like with Silvestri. Dante didn't elaborate, didn't need to. They ate sandwiches Luca had dropped off earlier. Apparently, the younger man's unofficial role included food delivery. Alara wondered what his official role was. Security? Enforcer? Something else entirely? What does Luca do? She asked. Whatever I need him to do. He's versatile. Dante wiped his mouth with a napkin. He started as a driver, worked his way up. Now he handles coordination, security, some intelligence gathering. He's good at reading situations, knowing when to push and when to pull back. You trust him. With my life. There's only a handful of people I can say that about. Luca's one of them. He paused. Eventually, if you prove yourself, you might be another. The conditional nature of it didn't escape her notice. If you prove yourself. Not when. If. Trust was earned in this world. Nothing was given freely. The afternoon brought a different kind of education. Dante introduced her to his operations inner circle via video calls. People whose names she immediately forgot, but whose functions she tried to memorize. Financial officer, operations coordinator, legal counsel. Each one assessed her through the screen with varying degrees of suspicion and curiosity. Dante introduced her the same way each time. This is Alara Vance. She's working with me now. Extend her full cooperation. No explanation of who she was or why she was there, just the fact of her existence and the expectation of acceptance. After the calls, Dante taught her about communication protocols, encrypted phones, code words, drop locations, the mechanics of passing information without leaving trails. It was surprisingly low-tech, face-to-face meetings, physical dead drops, conversations in public places where recording was difficult. Technology could be hacked, paper could be burned, memory could be denied. The goal, Dante explained, is plausible deniability. If someone accuses you of passing information, there's no evidence, no text messages, no emails, no recorded calls, just your word against theirs. And since you're nobody, no criminal record, no known associations, your word carries weight. I'm nobody until I'm not, Alara said. Exactly. You're an asset because you're invisible. The moment you become visible, you become vulnerable. So we keep you in the shadows as long as possible. By evening, Alara's head was spinning with information. Territory maps. Organizational charts. Names and faces and functions. It was overwhelming, but also exciting in a way she hadn't felt in years. She was learning something, becoming something, mattering in a concrete, measurable way. Dante must have sensed her mental fatigue because he closed the laptop and stood. That's enough for today. Your brain needs time to process. I can keep going. You can, but you shouldn't. Information overload leads to mistakes. Rest. Tomorrow we'll continue. Alara wanted to argue, but her exhaustion won. She retreated to the guest room, collapsed on the bed fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling, trying to organize everything she'd learned into something coherent. She must have dozed off because when she opened her eyes, the room was dark and her phone was buzzing. She grabbed it, saw Danny's name, answered groggily. Hey, sorry, did I wake you? He asked. No, maybe. What time is it? 8:30. Listen, I wanted to run something by you. My boss offered me a promotion, more responsibility, better pay, but it means evening shifts 3 nights a week. I'm trying to decide if it's worth it. Alara sat up, rubbing her eyes. Normal conversation, normal problems. Her brother had no idea she'd spent the day learning about organized crime territories and encrypted communication. What do you think? She asked. I think I should take it. The money would help, but the hours kind of suck. I wouldn't have as much time for therapy appointments. Can you reschedule therapy to mornings? Maybe. I'd have to check. He paused. You think I should do it? I think you should do what feels right. But yeah, the money sounds good. And you've been at that job long enough that a promotion is overdue. That's what I was thinking. He sounded relieved to have someone confirm his instincts. Okay, I'll tell him yes tomorrow. How's your job stuff going? Alara thought about how to answer that. Good. Really good, actually. I think I found something that's going to work out. That's great. Doing what? Consulting. The lie came easier than it should have. Business consulting. It's kind of boring to explain, but it pays well. You? Consulting? Since when do you know anything about business? Since I got tired of being broke. She forced a laugh. I'm learning as I go. It's actually interesting. They talked for a few more minutes before Danny had to go, something about laundry and a TV show starting. Normal life, normal concerns. Alara felt the distance between them growing even as they spoke. She was lying to him, would keep lying to him, because the truth would terrify him and put him in danger. After they hung up, she sat in the dark feeling the weight of her choices. This was the cost. Secrets. Distance. Becoming someone her brother wouldn't fully recognize. A knock on the door. You awake? Dante's voice. Yeah. He opened the door part way. Luca's bringing dinner. Figured you might be hungry. I am. Thanks. Also, he hesitated, which was unusual for him. You did well today. The learning curve is steep, but you're handling it better than most people would. The compliment caught her off guard. Thanks. Don't let it go to your head. You've got a long way to go, but you're starting strong. That matters. He left before she could respond. Alara got up, washed her face, tried to shake off the guilt from lying to Danny. This was her life now, secrets and shadows and careful deceptions. She'd chosen it. She'd live with it. Dinner was Chinese food from somewhere expensive, not takeout containers, but actual plates, properly presented. Alara and Dante ate at the dining table while Luca sat at the counter with his own food, scrolling through his phone. The dynamic felt almost normal. Almost like three people sharing a meal instead of a crime boss, his lieutenant, and a waitress-turned-asset figuring out an uneasy new arrangement. Question, Alara said between bites of lo mein. What do I tell people I do? When people ask about my job, what's my cover? What did you tell your brother? Dante asked. Business consulting. That works. Vague enough to be believable. Boring enough that people don't ask follow-up questions. We'll create paperwork to support it. Business cards, a fake company website, references. If anyone checks, it'll hold up to casual scrutiny. And if someone checks deeper, then we know someone's investigating you, which is valuable information. Dante set down his fork. Everything leaves traces. The goal isn't to eliminate traces, it's to control them. To make sure the traces tell the story you want told. Luca looked up from his phone. Speaking of traces, the Kowalskis are asking questions. Dante's attention sharpened. About? About Silvestri's disappearance. About who's moving into his territory. About whether we're planning expansion. Luca set down his phone. Victor Kowalski wants a sit-down. When? He suggested Friday. Neutral location. Just the two of you plus one each. Dante considered this. Tell him yes. Montero's restaurant. 6 p.m. I'll bring you. Not Marcus? Marcus is too aggressive. This is a diplomatic meeting. I need someone who can read the room. Dante glanced at Alara. You should come too. Both Alara and Luca looked at him in surprise. She's not ready for that, Luca said. She doesn't need to be ready. She needs to observe, to start understanding how these interactions work. Dante looked at Alara. You won't speak. You won't participate. You'll sit, watch, listen, and learn. Consider it a field lesson. What if Kowalski asks who I am? Alara asked. I'll handle it. He'll assume you're an assistant or consultant or someone's girlfriend. Let him assume. The more he underestimates you, the better. Luca didn't look happy, but he didn't argue. Apparently, when Dante made a decision, it was final. Friday then, Luca said. I'll confirm with Victor's people. The rest of dinner passed in relative silence. Alara's mind was already spinning forward to Friday. A sit-down with another crime boss. Her first exposure to that world beyond the safety of the penthouse. It should have terrified her. Instead, she felt something closer to anticipation. After Luca left, Alara helped clear the dishes, a gesture that felt weirdly domestic given the circumstances. Dante didn't try to stop her. They worked in companionable silence, loading the dishwasher, wiping down counters. Normal activities. Abnormal context. Can I ask you something? Alara said as she hung up the dish towel. Yes. Your sister, Elena, you said she tried to help someone. What happened exactly? Dante was quiet for so long she thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he spoke, voice carefully neutral. I was 17. stupid and arrogant and running with guys twice my age trying to prove I belonged. We got into a territorial dispute with another crew. Things escalated. Someone decided to send a message by targeting my family. They came to our apartment. Elena was home alone. She heard them coming, could have run, could have hidden. Instead, she called 911 and tried to stall them, tried to protect our mother's jewelry, our father's watch, things that mattered to us but were worthless to them. He paused. They killed her for a watch worth $300. Alar's chest tightened. I'm sorry. I was the one who found her, came home to... He stopped. That was the day I learned that good intentions don't matter. That trying to do the right thing gets you killed just as dead as doing the wrong thing. Maybe deader, because at least criminals expect retaliation. Innocents don't. But you still protect people. You protected me. I protect assets. I protect investments. I protect the structure I've built. That's different from the indiscriminate heroism that got Elena killed. He looked at her directly. You want to know the real reason I'm training you? It's not just because you saved my life. It's because I see Elena in you, that impulse to act, to help, to step in when any sane person would step back. And I couldn't save her, but maybe I can train you to save yourself. The raw honesty of it hit her like a physical thing. This wasn't about debt or obligation. This was about atonement, about saving a version of his sister he'd failed to protect 20 years ago. I'm not her, Alara said quietly. No, you're not. You're smarter and you're learning from someone who knows how this world works. That gives you a chance she never had. He moved toward his bedroom. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we start physical training. Physical training? You need to know how to defend yourself, how to handle a weapon, how to move in dangerous situations. Intelligence gathering is only useful if you survive long enough to report what you learned. He disappeared into his room, leaving Alara standing in the kitchen processing that. Physical training, weapons, moving in dangerous situations. Each new layer revealed how deep this commitment went, how thoroughly her life was changing. She went back to the guest room, lay in bed, and tried to imagine herself as someone who carried weapons and operated in dangerous situations. Failed completely. Failed. She was still Alara Vance, former waitress, invisible woman who'd spent 26 years trying to survive without drawing attention. But that version of herself was dying. Bit by bit, day by day, being replaced by someone harder, someone capable, someone who belonged in Dante's world. She wasn't sure if that was progress or tragedy. Maybe it was both. Sleep came eventually, restless and full of dreams she couldn't quite remember upon waking. When her alarm went off at 6 a.m., Dante had set it remotely. Apparently her phone was now part of his network. She dragged herself out of bed, feeling like she'd been hit by a truck. The training started immediately. Dante was already in the gym, dressed in workout clothes, waiting. No coffee, no breakfast, just straight into it. You ever do any self-defense? He asked. Does pepper spray count? No. All right, we're starting from zero. First thing you need to learn, awareness. Most people walk around blind, staring at phones, lost in thought, completely oblivious to their surroundings. That gets you killed. So we're going to train your observation. For the next hour, he drilled her on noticing details, made her describe everything in the gym from memory, then made her do it again with her eyes closed, made her identify sounds, the hum of the air conditioning, traffic from the street below, footsteps in the hallway, made her map exit routes, identify blind spots, assess threat angles. It was exhausting, but also oddly meditative. Paying attention to everything meant thinking about nothing, just pure presence, pure awareness. After observation training came physical conditioning, running on the treadmill until her lungs burned, weights until her arms shook, core exercises until she couldn't hold a plank for another second. Dante pushed her hard, offering no sympathy when she wanted to quit, no praise when she succeeded, just steady expectation that she'd meet the standards he set. By the time they stopped for breakfast, Alara could barely move. Every muscle screamed. Her clothes were soaked with sweat. She felt like she might die. Good start, Dante said, like he hadn't just destroyed her. Tomorrow we'll add hand-to-hand basics. I can't wait, Alara muttered, pretty sure she was being sarcastic but too tired to be certain. They showered, separately, in their respective bathrooms, and reconvened for breakfast. Eggs, toast, fruit, protein and carbs. Fuel for recovery. Why so early? Alara asked around a mouthful of scrambled eggs. Why 6 a.m.? Because threats don't wait for convenient hours. You need to be ready at any time. That means building discipline, routine, consistency. Dante poured orange juice. Also, morning training means you spend the rest of the day sore. That reminds you that this is real, that there are physical consequences to the life you've chosen. Message received, Alara said, wincing as she reached for toast. The rest of the day followed the pattern from yesterday. Intelligence briefings, learning organizational structures, studying territory maps, more names, more faces, more information to absorb. But this time Alara's body was screaming in protest, making it harder to focus, making every minute feel twice as long. By evening, she was ready to collapse, but Dante wasn't done. One more thing, he said. Friday's meeting. You need to look the part. What part? Professional, put together, someone who belongs in that room. What did you pack? Alara thought about her duffel bag. Jeans, t-shirts, one pair of work pants, nothing appropriate for whatever Friday is. Then we're going shopping. Now? Now. Dante took her to a boutique in the financial district, the kind of place where the clothes didn't have price tags because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. The staff knew Dante by name. They descended on Alara like a well-dressed swarm, measuring her, assessing her coloring, pulling items she'd never have chosen for herself. She ended up with 3 outfits: business professional, business casual, and something the salesperson called understated elegant. All of it fit perfectly. All of it cost more than her monthly rent used to. I can't accept this, Alara said as Dante handed over a credit card without looking at the total. You can and you will. This is work equipment, not a gift. You need to look credible. This makes you credible. He signed the receipt. Consider it an investment in your development. Back at the penthouse, Alara hung up her new clothes feeling surreal. 2 days ago, she'd owned maybe 8 outfits total. Now she had 3 that cost more than everything else combined. Try on the gray suit, Dante said. The one for Friday. I want to see how it looks. Alara changed in her room, wrestling with buttons and zippers. The suit was charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes. Professional, serious, expensive. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Hair pulled into a neat bun. Minimal makeup the salesperson had insisted on applying. Suit that fit like it had been made for her. She looked like someone important, someone with purpose, someone who belonged in rooms with powerful men making dangerous decisions. She walked out to show Dante. He assessed her with a critical eye, then nodded. That works. You look competent, trustworthy, forgettable in the right way, like background staff, not like a threat. Perfect. Forgettable. There was that word again. Her superpower and her camouflage. Friday, Dante said. You sit, you observe, you say nothing unless directly addressed. Watch how Victor Kowalski presents himself. Watch his body language. Watch what he emphasizes and what he deflects. This is a lesson in reading power dynamics. What's the meeting actually about? Territory negotiation. Victor wants to expand east. I want to maintain the current boundaries. We'll discuss terms, make veiled threats, probably leave without a resolution. It's theater as much as negotiation. Everyone performs their role. And my role is silent observer. Exactly. Alara went to bed that night with her body still aching from the morning's training and her mind spinning with everything she'd learned. Friday felt both close and far away. She was nervous, excited, terrified, all of it at once. She'd made her choice. Now she'd live with the consequences. Friday arrived faster than Alara expected. The days between had blurred together, early morning training sessions that left her exhausted, afternoon intelligence briefings that made her head spin, evenings spent reviewing everything she'd learned until the names and territories and power structures became almost familiar. Her body was adapting to the physical demands. Her mind was slowly organizing the chaos of information into something coherent. But nothing prepared her for actually walking into Montero's restaurant at 5:45 p.m., wearing her gray suit and trying to look like she belonged there. Montero's was upscale Italian, the kind of place with white tablecloths and wine lists longer than Alara's arm. It sat on neutral ground between territories, not quite Dante's area, Not quite Kowalski's, not quite Chen's. Switzerland in restaurant form. The staff knew why certain people met there. They asked no questions and remembered nothing. Dante had driven them himself, which surprised Alara until she realized that bringing multiple cars to a diplomatic meeting looked like bringing backup, which looked like distrust, which could derail negotiations before they started. So it was just the three of them, Dante, Luca, and Alara, arriving exactly on time. Not early, which suggested eagerness. Not late, which suggested disrespect. Exactly 6 p.m. Victor Kowalski was already there, seated at a corner booth with sightlines to both entrances. He'd brought one person, a woman in her 40s with short blonde hair and the kind of eyes that didn't miss anything. Victor himself was maybe 50, heavy-set, with the ruddy complexion of someone who drank well and often. He wore an expensive suit that strained slightly across his shoulders. Not fat, solid. The kind of solid that came from years of manual labor before the money arrived. "Dante," Victor said, standing. Not quite friendly, not quite hostile. Carefully neutral. "Victor." Dante shook his hand. Firm, brief, professional. "You know Luca. This is Alara Vance, my consultant." Consultant. The word did exactly what Dante had predicted. Victor's eyes slid over Alara with minimal interest, categorizing her as administrative staff, beneath his concern. The blonde woman studied her longer, more carefully, but said nothing. "My associate Petra," Victor said, gesturing to the woman. "Shall we sit?" They arranged themselves in the booth, Victor and Petra on one side, Dante and Luca on the other. Alara sat at the end, positioned slightly back from the table, present but peripheral. She kept her hands folded in her lap and her expression neutral, channeling every skill she'd ever learned about being invisible. A waiter appeared immediately. They ordered drinks, whiskey for Victor, wine for Dante, water for everyone else. The waiter vanished like smoke. "Thank you for meeting on such short notice," Victor said once the drinks arrived. His accent was faint, Eastern European buried under years of American assimilation. "Recent events have created opportunities for discussion." "Silvestri's removal," Dante said. "Not a question." "Among other things, Marco was unstable, dangerous. I don't mourn his absence." Victor sipped his whiskey. "But his absence creates questions. About territory, about business interests, about who assumes control of what he left behind." "I've assumed control," Dante said simply. Victor's expression didn't change. "All of it?" "The piece is worth taking. The rest I've dismantled. Without consulting the rest of us." This from Petra, her first words. Her voice was crisp, professional. "That's a significant unilateral move. Marco worked for me. His territory was mine by extension. I'm simply making official what was already true." Dante's tone was reasonable but firm. "Unless you're suggesting I needed permission to reclaim my own assets." "I'm suggesting," Petra said, "that the balance we've maintained requires mutual respect. When one party expands significantly, others take notice." Alara watched the dynamic carefully. Victor was the face, the friendly negotiator, the reasonable man. Petra was the blade, the one who said the uncomfortable truths, who pushed back, who maintained pressure without Victor having to dirty his hands. Classic good cop, bad cop. Dante had predicted exactly this. "The balance remains unchanged," Dante said. "My boundaries haven't moved. I've simply consolidated internal territory that was already mine." "And the Neptune's crown incident?" Victor leaned forward slightly. "There are rumors. An assassination attempt. Poison. Very dramatic." So that's what this was really about. Not territory negotiations. Information gathering. Victor wanted to understand what happened, who was involved, whether it indicated weakness or strength in Dante's organization. "Rumors tend to exaggerate," Dante said. "There was a situation. It was handled. Business continues as usual." "Handled by whom?" Petra asked. Her eyes flicked briefly to Alara. "There are stories about a waitress, about someone interfering at a critical moment." Alara's heart rate spiked, but she kept her expression blank. Luca had taught her the trick. Think about something boring, something that generates no emotional response. Grocery lists, traffic patterns, anything but the actual topic. She mentally cataloged the restaurant's exits while Petra stared at her. Stories, Dante said dismissively. The Neptune's crown employs dozens of people. Any of them could have noticed something unusual. What matters is the situation was resolved. Oh, resolved meaning Silvestri disappeared, Victor said, along with several of his key people. Very thorough resolution. I don't leave loose ends. No, you don't. Victor finished his whiskey, signaled for another. Which brings us to the real question. The Chen Syndicate is expanding west. Small moves, nothing dramatic, but consistent. They're testing boundaries, seeing who pushes back. Dante's attention sharpened. How far west? 3 blocks into what used to be Silvestri's territory. Technically, your territory now. Small businesses, dry cleaners, restaurants, convenience stores, offering protection services at competitive rates. They're probing, Luca said quietly. Exactly. Victor's second whiskey arrived. The question is whether you're going to respond. And if so, how? This was the actual negotiation. Victor was offering intelligence, valuable intelligence about Chen's movements, in exchange for something. The question was what? What do you want, Victor? Dante asked bluntly. The older man smiled. Direct. I appreciate that. What I want is assurance. The Chens move into your territory, you push back, suddenly we have a conflict on the east side. Conflicts tend to spread. Create instability. I prefer stability. So do I. Then perhaps we coordinate our response. Present a unified front. Make it clear that Eastern expansion isn't worth the cost. Victor spread his hands. Not an alliance. Just an understanding. Mutual interest alignment. Alara watched Dante process this. It was a good offer on the surface. 2 major players telling a third to back off carried weight. But it also meant owing Victor, meant future expectations, meant complicating the careful balance they all maintained. What specifically are you proposing? Dante asked. A sit-down, you, me, David Chen. Neutral location. We discuss boundaries. We reaffirm the existing structure. We make it clear that recent instability was internal to your organization and doesn't signal weakness or opportunity. Victor leaned back. Simple. Professional. No bloodshed. And if Chen refuses the sit-down, then we both make it expensive for him to continue. Economic pressure, strategic business disruptions. Nothing violent. Nothing that draws attention. Just making the point that expansion costs more than it's worth. Petra added, we've already identified 3 Chen operations that are marginally profitable. Apply pressure there. They become losses. Losses change calculations. It was elegant, effective. The kind of coordinated strategy that kept territories stable without requiring open warfare. But it also meant Dante would owe Victor for the coordination, would need to reciprocate eventually. Nothing was free in this world. I'll consider it, Dante said. Give me 48 hours. Take 72, Victor said generously. Chen's moves are slow. We have time, but not unlimited time. They ordered food after that, the negotiation portion apparently complete. The conversation shifted to safer topics. City politics, real estate development, the kind of business talk that could have happened anywhere, between anyone. Alara listened to it all, filing away details. The way Victor mentioned his daughter's college education, subtle flex about legitimate success. The way Petra checked her phone twice. Someone was feeding her information in real time. The way Dante deflected personal questions while appearing to answer them, sharing nothing while seeming open. It was all performance, all theater, everyone playing their role perfectly. They finished dinner around 8. Handshakes, professional goodbyes. Victor and Petra left first. Protocol dictated that the person who called the meeting left last. But Victor was making a gesture of respect by reversing it. Small things that meant larger things. In the car, Luca waited until they were 3 blocks away before speaking. He's right about the Chens. I've had reports of exactly what he described. I know, Dante said. What I don't know is why Victor's offering to help. What does he gain? Stability, Alara said before she could stop herself. Both men looked at her. She swallowed, committed. He said it himself. He prefers stability. If you and Chen go to war, even economic war, it creates chaos. Chaos creates opportunities, but also risks. Victor's established. He doesn't need opportunities. He needs predictability. Helping you maintain boundaries maintains his own. Dante was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. That's good analysis. What else did you notice? Petra's running their intelligence operation. She had details Victor didn't mention, the 3 marginally profitable operations. She's the one tracking Chen's movements, and she studied me longer than Victor did. She's suspicious, but couldn't place why. Because you're new, Luca said. New faces raise questions. What's your assessment? Dante asked Alara. Should I take Victor's offer? The question surprised her. He was actually asking her opinion, testing her judgment. Yes, Alara said, but not for the reasons he stated. Take it because refusing signals either weakness, that you're afraid of Chen, or aggression, that you want to handle it yourself, which might indicate territorial ambitions of your own. Taking the meeting is neutral, safe, maintains your position without exposing anything. Dante smiled slightly. Exactly right. We'll do the sit-down. Luca, set it up for next week. Somewhere very public. Somewhere Chen can't refuse without looking unreasonable. They drove the rest of the way in silence. Alara felt a weird sense of accomplishment. She'd sat through her first real meeting, observed, analyzed, contributed, and nobody had questioned her presence or her right to be there. Back at the penthouse, Dante poured himself another drink and stood at the window looking out at the harbor. Luca had gone home. It was just the 2 of them in the quiet space, processing the evening. You did well, Dante said without turning around. You were invisible, but attentive. That's the balance we need. Thank you. Victor won't forget you, though. Neither will Petra. They'll ask around, figure out who you are. Find out about the Neptune's crown. They'll put pieces together. Is that a problem? No, it's inevitable. The key is controlling the narrative. By the time they learn your background, you'll be established enough that it doesn't matter. You'll just be Dante Volkov's consultant who happened to save his life once. Almost romantic. He turned to face her. People love a good story. Give them one that satisfies their curiosity and they stop digging deeper. Alara thought about that. So I'm not hiding, I'm just being selectively visible. Exactly. The best lies are mostly truth. You were a waitress. You did save my life. You were working as my consultant. All true. The details of what that consulting entails, that's nobody's business but ours. It made sense. Perfect sense. Which somehow made it more unsettling. She was learning to lie by telling the truth, to hide by being seen, to operate in plain sight by being exactly what people expected. Nothing. I should call Danny, Alara said. I haven't talked to him in 2 days. Keep it brief. Keep it light. Remember? He doesn't know anything. I know. She retreated to her room and called her brother. He answered on the 3rd ring, slightly breathless. Hey, sorry, just got back from the gym, he said. What's up? Nothing, just checking in. How's the new schedule working out? It's good. Tiring, but good. Extra money's already making a difference. I'm thinking about getting a better laptop. This one's dying. That's great, Danny. How's the consulting thing? You sound tired. Long week, lots of meetings, lots of learning. You like it, though. Did she? That was a complicated question. She liked feeling competent, liked feeling important, liked the sense that she was building something instead of just surviving. Whether those feelings outweighed the moral complexity of working for Dante Volkov, that was harder to answer. Yeah, she said. I think I do. They talked for a few more minutes about nothing important, his new laptop needs, a show he was watching, plans for their lunch on Saturday, normal conversation with her normal brother who lived in the normal world she'd left behind. After they hung up, Alara sat on the bed feeling the weight of her double life. Danny had no idea. Would never have an idea. She'd make sure of it. He'd stay safe in his ignorance while she operated in shadows, making decisions he'd never understand. The next week passed in a new rhythm. Morning training, hand-to-hand combat now, Luca teaching her how to throw a punch, how to break a grip, how to move if someone grabbed her. Afternoon intelligence work, studying reports about Chen's operations, tracking movement patterns, learning to identify legitimate businesses from fronts, evening strategy sessions with Dante, discussing scenarios, testing her analytical skills, preparing for the sit-down with Victor and Chen. The sit-down was scheduled for Thursday. Public restaurant, midday, 3 parties, 2 representatives each, standard diplomatic theater. But Wednesday night, everything changed. Alara was reviewing files when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Dante's rules about communication security were strict. But something made her pick up. Miss Vance. A voice she didn't recognize. Male, young, nervous. You don't know me. My name is Alex. I worked for Marco Silvestri. Alara's blood went cold. How did you get this number? That doesn't matter. What matters is I have information you need. About tomorrow's meeting. About Chen. About something Silvestri set up before he disappeared. I'm hanging up. Wait, please, just listen. Silvestri had insurance, in case his assassination failed. He reached out to Chen, offered him information about Volkov's operations, territory details, financial structures, everything, in exchange for protection and support. Alara's heart was pounding. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't want to die. Chen accepted the deal, but then Silvestri disappeared. Now Chen thinks he can use that information without paying for it. And anyone who knew about the arrangement is a liability. I'm a liability. So I'm offering this information to Volkov instead, as insurance. Call Dante directly. I tried. Your people won't put me through. Nobody trusts Marco's former employees, but you're new. You might listen. He was talking fast now, desperate. Tomorrow's meeting is a setup. Chen's bringing information about Volkov's operations. He's going to use it as leverage. Threaten exposure unless Volkov concedes territory. It's a trap. Where are you right now? Somewhere safe. I need guarantees before I come in. Protection, money, a way out of the city. Alara's mind raced. This could be legitimate intelligence, or it could be a trap itself. Someone trying to get close to Dante by offering information. But if it was real, if Chen really had detailed intelligence about Dante's operations, tomorrow's meeting could be a disaster. Stay where you are, Alara said. Don't move. Don't call anyone else. I'm going to talk to my people. If your information is real, we'll work something out. How do I know you won't just... You don't, but you called me, which means you're out of options, so you're going to have to trust me. She hung up before he could respond. Stood there for 10 seconds trying to decide if she was about to make a huge mistake. Then she walked out to find Dante. He was in his study, working on his laptop, looked up when she entered. We have a problem, Alara said. She explained the phone call, every detail she could remember. Dante listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. This could be legitimate, he said finally. Or it could be Chen trying to spook us into canceling the meeting. Or it could be someone else entirely using the situation for their own purposes. What do? We verify, carefully. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Marcus, I need you to track a phone number. Find out who it's registered to, where the call originated, any history you can pull. Fast. He recited the number from Alara's recent calls log. They waited. 15 minutes. 20. Alara paced. Dante remained still. That terrible stillness that meant his mind was working through scenarios at high speed. His phone rang. Talk to me. Pause. You're sure? Another pause. Find him. Bring him in. No harm. I want to talk to him. He hung up, looked at Alara. The number is registered to Alex Petrov, 24 years old, worked logistics for Silvestri, low level. Nothing that would make him worth eliminating unless he really does have information Chen wants buried. So it might be real. Might be. Dante stood, moved to the window. If it is real, we have a bigger problem. Silvestri having detailed intelligence about my operations means he had access he shouldn't have had, which means either he was better at surveillance than I gave him credit for, or someone gave him information. A leak? Possibly. Or just sloppy security. He turned back to her. Marcus will find this Alex Petrov. We'll evaluate his information. If it's legitimate, we'll protect him. If it's not, we'll find out who sent him. And tomorrow's meeting? Proceeds as scheduled, but now we're prepared for Chen to play games. That's valuable. He studied her face. You made the right call answering that phone. And the right call bringing it to me immediately. That's exactly the kind of judgment I need from you. The praise should have felt good. Instead, Alara just felt exhausted. Every day brought new complications, new threats, new variables to track and assess and respond to. "Go to bed," Dante said, reading her expression. "Tomorrow's going to be interesting." Interesting turned out to be an understatement. Marcus found Alex Petrov hiding in a motel on the outskirts of the city, brought him to a secure location, not the penthouse, somewhere else Dante used for situations requiring discretion. Alara went with Dante to the interview, observing from behind one-way glass while Luca did the actual questioning. Alex was exactly what he'd sounded like on the phone. Young, scared, desperate. He spilled everything. Yes, Silvestri had contacted Chen. Yes, he'd offered detailed intelligence. Yes, Chen had accepted and was planning to use it as leverage. Alex had copies of the information Silvestri had compiled. Organizational charts, financial records, territory maps, all of it frighteningly accurate. "How did Marco get this?" Dante asked, entering the room. His voice was calm, but Alara could hear the edge underneath. "I don't know," Alex said. "He had sources, people feeding him information. I just did what he told me, compiled it, organized it, prepared it for transfer." "Who were his sources?" "I don't know names. Marco kept that separate. I just know there were people inside your organization passing information. At least 2, maybe more." Dante absorbed that. 2 moles, maybe more. That was a significant breach. "Can you identify them from organizational charts?" "Maybe. I saw some of the reports, recognized patterns, but I can't guarantee anything." They spent the next 3 hours going through everything. Alex shared what he knew. Dante's people verified what they could. By the time they finished, it was clear. Chen absolutely had leverage, and he was planning to use it at tomorrow's meeting. "What do you want from us?" Dante asked Alex directly. "Protection? Money to disappear. Help leaving the city and starting over somewhere Chen can't find me." "Done. You stay in protective custody until after tomorrow's meeting. Once this situation is resolved, we'll set you up with new identity, travel arrangements, and enough money to start over. In exchange, you work with my security team to identify Marco's sources." "Deal." Alex looked like he might cry from relief. Back at the penthouse, Dante, Luca, and Alara strategized. "Chen's going to walk into that meeting expecting to dominate the conversation," Luca said. "He thinks he has information that gives him power." "So we flip it," Dante said. "We let him show his hand, then we demonstrate that we already knew about the leak and have addressed it. We turn his leverage into evidence of weakness, that he had to rely on stolen intelligence instead of legitimate strength." "That's risky," Alara said. "What if he has information we haven't secured yet? Then we learn what we're missing. Either way, we benefit." Dante looked at her. "You're coming tomorrow. Not as silent observer this time, as active participant." "What? Why?" "Because Chen doesn't know you, doesn't know your role. That gives you an advantage. You can read him without him reading you. And I want your assessment of whether he's bluffing or if he really has more cards to play." Alara's stomach nodded. Active participant. That meant speaking, interacting, being visible in a way she hadn't been with Victor. "What if I mess up?" "You won't. Trust your instincts. They've been right so far." Dante's expression softened slightly. "You saved my life by trusting your gut. Trust it again tomorrow." Thursday arrived with clear skies and cold wind off the harbor. Alara dressed in her understated elegant outfit. Dark dress, blazer, minimal jewelry. Professional, but not aggressive. Present, but not threatening. She practiced her expression in the mirror. Calm, confident, quietly competent. The mask she'd wear while her insides churned with anxiety. The meeting was at Giordano's, another neutral territory restaurant. Lunch crowd would provide cover. Business meetings happened there constantly. Nothing unusual about 3 parties sitting down to discuss matters. They arrived at noon. Victor was already there, looking slightly more casual than last time. Petra sat beside him. Same sharp eyes, same careful assessment of everyone who entered. David Chen arrived 5 minutes later. He was younger than Alara expected. Maybe 40, lean, impeccably dressed. He brought a man introduced as Mr. Wu, 60s, distinguished, the kind of presence that suggested decades of experience in negotiations. They took their seats, ordered drinks, exchanged pleasantries that meant nothing. "Thank you for arranging this," Chen said to Victor. "I appreciate the opportunity for dialogue." We all benefit from clear communication, Victor replied. Recent events have created uncertainty. This is a chance to reestablish clarity. Indeed. Chen's eyes moved to Dante. I understand you've consolidated significantly since Silvestri's departure. Internal reorganization, Dante said smoothly. Nothing that affects our boundaries. Except that your boundaries now include what was formerly contested territory. That's not nothing. It was never contested. It was always mine. Marco just administered it. An interesting interpretation. Chen smiled. Predatory. I wonder if everyone shares that view. Here it comes, Alara thought, the leverage play. I'm curious what interpretation you'd offer, Dante said. His tone was casual, but Alara could feel the tension. Chen took a sip of his water. I'd offer that recent instability suggests vulnerabilities, that an organization secure in its foundations doesn't experience assassination attempts, that perhaps consolidation is less about strength and more about damage control. Everyone experiences challenges, Victor interjected smoothly. What matters is how they're handled. Absolutely. Chen's smile didn't waver, which is why I thought it might be valuable to share some information that's come to my attention. Information about organizational structures, financial arrangements, territory management protocols, he paused. Detailed information, the kind that comes from inside sources. There it was. The threat delivered with perfect diplomatic coding. Dante's expression didn't change. Inside sources. Someone previously employed by Mr. Volkov's organization reached out, offered intelligence in exchange for consideration. I found the information illuminating. And you're sharing this because, Dante's voice was perfectly controlled, because I believe in transparency, because that information suggests expansion east might be less challenging than previously thought, because I thought you should know that such intelligence exists. Chen spread his hands. Consider it a courtesy, a demonstration that I operate in good faith. It was elegant, threatening without being overtly hostile, demonstrating power without using it directly. Alara watched everyone's reactions. Victor looked uncomfortable. This wasn't the kind of coordination he'd envisioned. Petra was calculating, reassessing. Mr. Wu remained impassive. Luca was tense, ready for Dante's signal. Dante took a long drink of his wine, set down the glass, looked directly at Chen. That's interesting, he said, because someone recently approached me with very similar intelligence, claimed to have information about how that information was compiled, who provided it, how it was intended to be used. He leaned forward slightly, claimed that the person offering this information to you was acting without full authority, that the intelligence itself was compromised, containing accurate details mixed with deliberate misinformation designed to expose anyone foolish enough to act on it. Chen's smile faltered, just for a second, but Alara saw it. Dante continued, voice calm. So I appreciate your transparency, David, but I should offer my own courtesy in return. That intelligence you received? It's tainted. Acting on it would expose your operations to significant risk. The mole who provided it has already been identified and removed. The information itself has been rendered obsolete through internal restructuring, and anyone found to be using stolen intelligence rather than legitimate strategy will face consequences. The threat hung in the air. Chen's smile was gone now. Mr. Wu whispered something in his ear. Chen's jaw tightened. I see, Chen said carefully. Thank you for that clarification. Of course. Dante's tone suggested the matter was settled. Now, shall we discuss the actual reason for this meeting? Victor mentioned concerns about Eastern expansion. I'm happy to reaffirm existing boundaries if that provides everyone with clarity. The rest of the meeting was pure formality. They discussed territories, reaffirmed boundaries, agreed to maintain the existing balance. Chen's leverage had evaporated the moment Dante revealed he'd anticipated and neutralized it. By the time they finished lunch, Chen looked like he'd aged 5 years. They left separately. Victor first, with a nod to Dante that suggested approval. Chen second, with Mr. Wu speaking urgently in his ear. Dante, Luca, and Alara last. In the car, nobody spoke until they were several blocks away. Then Luca let out a long breath. That was incredible, he said. You completely turned it around, made his strength look like weakness. He overplayed his hand, Dante said. Thought having information meant having power. Forgot that information is only powerful if your opponent doesn't know you have it. The moment he threatened, he showed his cards. What about the moles? Alara asked. Alex said there were 2, maybe more. We're investigating. We'll find them. Dante looked at her. Your assessment. Was Chen bluffing about having additional intelligence? Alara thought back to the meeting. Chen's reactions. The way his expression changed when Dante revealed the information was compromised. The whispered conversation with Mr. Wu. No, she said. He really believed he had good intelligence, which means either he hasn't reviewed it carefully enough to spot the misinformation, or it's more accurate than Alex knew. But he's scared now. Scared that acting on it will expose him. That's real fear, not performance. Dante nodded. That's my read too, which means we have time. He'll audit the information before making any moves. That gives us time to secure our actual vulnerabilities and mislead him about false ones. You wanted this, Alara said, understanding. You wanted Chen to have the intelligence. Not originally, but once I knew he had it, I realized we could use it. Feed false information through the same channels. Make him question everything he thinks he knows. Turn his advantage into a disadvantage. Dante smiled slightly. In this world, Alara, perfect information is almost impossible. So the next best thing is making your opponent doubt their information. That's just as paralyzing. They spent the rest of the day securing operations. Dante's security team swept for additional leaks. Communication protocols were changed. Key personnel were reassigned. The organizational structure Alex had described was deliberately scrambled so that any intelligence based on it would be obsolete. By evening, Dante seemed satisfied they'd done what could be done. He poured drinks for himself, Luca, and Alara. To successful negotiations, he said, raising his glass. They drank. The whiskey burned going down, but Alara was getting used to it, getting used to a lot of things that would have seemed impossible a week ago. What happens now? She asked. Now we watch, Dante said. We see if Chen makes moves. We see if Victor leverages his role in today's meeting. We see if anyone else decides that recent events represent opportunity rather than warning, and we respond accordingly. That's it? We just wait? Welcome to the reality of this work. It's mostly patience, mostly watching and waiting and positioning. The dramatic parts, the poisoning attempts, the confrontations, the big moves, those are rare. Most days are just intelligence gathering and careful positioning. It should have been boring. Instead, Alara found it oddly satisfying, like putting together a puzzle, each piece of information adding to a larger picture, each move revealing something about the players involved. I'm going to check on my brother this weekend, she said. Take him to lunch like we planned. Keep things normal. Good idea, Dante said. Maintaining your regular life maintains your cover. Just be careful. Don't reveal anything about what you're doing. And keep your security detail at a distance. I'll have people watching, but they'll stay invisible. I know the rules. I know you do, but it's worth repeating. He finished his drink. You're doing well, Alara. Better than I expected. You're adapting quickly. Is that good? It's necessary. The people who survive in this world are the ones who can adapt, who can change as circumstances require. Rigidity gets you killed. Alara thought about that, about how much she'd already changed in just over a week, how the waitress who'd saved a stranger's life had become someone who strategized with crime bosses and analyzed territorial negotiations, how visible invisibility had become her greatest skill. Saturday came. Alara met Danny at a cafe near his apartment, neutral territory, no connection to Dante or his organization, just a sister having lunch with her brother. Normal, safe, real. Danny looked good, happy. The extra money from his promotion was already showing. New shoes, better haircut, the kind of details that indicated someone who wasn't constantly stressed about finances. You look different, he said after they'd ordered. Different how? I don't know, more confident, more put together? He studied her. The consulting job is agreeing with you. It's been good. Challenging, but good. What exactly do you consult on? Alara had prepared for this question. Business operations. Efficiency analysis. Helping companies optimize their structures. It's kind of boring to explain. But it pays well? It pays very well. I'm happy for you. Danny smiled, genuine, uncomplicated. You've been struggling for so long. It's good to see things finally working out. Guilt twisted in her stomach. She was lying to him, keeping secrets, living a double life he'd never understand. But he was safe, protected, able to focus on his promotion and his therapy and his normal life precisely because she was protecting him from the truth. They talked about nothing important for the next hour: his job, his physical therapy progress, a girl he'd met at work who might be interested, normal conversation, normal concerns, the kind of life Alara used to have and had willingly left behind. When they parted ways, Danny hugged her. I love you, sis. Thanks for always being there. I love you too, Alara said, meaning it with everything she had. She watched him walk away toward the bus stop, flanked by two of Dante's people at a discreet distance. Protected, safe, ignorant of the invisible infrastructure keeping him that way. That evening, back at the penthouse, Alara found Dante on the terrace despite the cold. He was smoking, she hadn't known he smoked, staring out at the harbor lights. How was lunch? He asked without turning. Good, normal. He's doing well. You feel guilty about lying to him. How did you know? Because I felt the same way. When Elena was alive, when I was getting deeper into this life and couldn't tell her, couldn't explain why I had money suddenly, why I was different. He took a long drag. She knew something was wrong, kept asking. I kept deflecting. Then she died before I could tell her the truth. I'm sorry. Don't be. I made my choices. You're making yours. The guilt is just part of the price. He stubbed out the cigarette. But you need to decide if you're willing to pay it, long term, because this doesn't get easier. The lies compound, the distance grows. Eventually you become someone your brother wouldn't recognize. Is that what happened to you? Yes. I became someone Elena wouldn't have recognized, wouldn't have liked, probably. But I survived, and I built something that matters, that has value beyond just me. He finally turned to look at her. The question is whether that trade is worth it for you. Alara thought about her old life, the struggle, the invisibility, the constant fear of drowning financially. Then she thought about the past week and a half, the training, the strategic thinking, the sense of building something, of mattering. I think it is, she said. I think this is worth the cost. Dante nodded. Then we continue. We train you further. We develop your skills. We position you for increasingly important work, and we see where this goes. Where does it go? That depends on you, on what you're capable of, on what you want. He moved toward the door. But I'll tell you this. You have potential, real potential. You could become a significant asset to this organization, or you could decide at any point that this isn't for you and walk away. The choice is always yours. But was it? Really? Alara wondered if anyone truly walked away from Dante's world once they'd entered it. If the knowledge she carried, the things she'd witnessed, the people she now knew, if all of that could ever be left behind cleanly. She didn't ask because she wasn't sure she wanted the answer. The following weeks established a new normal: morning training, afternoon intelligence work, evening strategy sessions. Alara's skills developed rapidly. She learned to shoot, though she hoped never to use that knowledge. She learned hand-to-hand combat, enough to escape if grabbed. She learned surveillance techniques, counter-surveillance tactics, how to spot a tail and how to lose one. More importantly, she learned to read power, to understand not just what people said, but why they said it, to see the invisible chess game constantly being played in Dante's world, to anticipate moves before they happened. She attended more meetings, observed more negotiations, gradually moved from silent observer to occasional contributor to active participant. People in Dante's organization started recognizing her, respecting her. She became known, not as the waitress who'd saved Dante's life, but as someone competent in her own right. The moles were found. 2 of them, just as Alex had said. Both had been passing information to Silvestri for months. Dante handled it quietly. They simply disappeared. Alara didn't ask for details. Chen backed off his eastern expansion. Victor maintained his northern territory without incident. The balance held, exactly as Dante had engineered. 3 months after that night at the Neptune's Crown, Alara moved into her own apartment. Nothing like her old place. This was in a good neighborhood, secure building, space that felt like a home rather than a survival pod. Dante paid for it as part of her compensation. She'd tried to refuse. He'd refused her refusal. "This is what assets receives," he'd said. "Quality of life commensurate with value provided. You've earned it." Danny was happy for her success, proud of his sister who'd turned her life around. He never questioned the details because the surface story was so convincing, hard-working consultant who'd finally caught a break. It wasn't even really a lie, just truth with strategic omissions. 6 months in, Dante gave Alara her first solo assignment, a financial analyst at a shipping company that one of Chen's operations used for cover. Just observe, report patterns, see if there was anything worth investigating further. She spent 2 weeks in that shipping office, being invisible, being forgettable, noticing everything. The way invoices were processed, the way certain shipments received special handling, the way one particular supervisor always worked late on Wednesdays. Her report identified a money laundering operation worth $3 million annually. Dante's people confirmed it, shut it down, absorbed the legitimate parts of the business. "Well done," Dante said when it was over. "You just cost Chen significant revenue and gave us valuable intelligence about his financial structures. That's exactly the kind of work I need from you." Alara felt pride and unease in equal measure. She'd just helped dismantle someone's criminal operation by running her own criminal intelligence. The irony wasn't lost on her, but she'd also proven her value, demonstrated capability, earned her place in Dante's organization. A year after the Neptune's Crown, Alara had become someone she wouldn't have recognized, confident, capable, connected to a world of power and danger that operated in the shadows of the legitimate world. She'd kept her humanity, still called Danny every week, still felt guilt about the lies, still questioned the morality of her choices. But she'd also accepted the reality. This was her life now. These were her choices. She'd walked through the door willingly, and she'd decided the price was worth paying. One evening, standing on the balcony of her apartment, looking out at the harbor that had become her territory as much as Dante's, Alara thought about the waitress she'd been. Invisible, struggling, desperate. That woman was gone. Replaced by someone harder, someone who operated in moral gray areas, someone who'd traded innocence for power and invisibility for significance. She thought about that moment, touching the poison, grabbing Dante's wrist, choosing to act instead of walk away. One decision, 1 second. That had changed everything. Sometimes she wondered what would have happened if she'd made a different choice, if she'd stayed silent, let him die, collected her money, and left. But she hadn't. She'd chosen to save a life, and that choice had led here, to this apartment, this career, this version of herself. Was it better? Was it worse? Alara didn't know, but it was hers. She'd chosen it, and she'd live with the consequences. In Dante's world, that was the only kind of freedom anyone really had, the freedom to choose and then own those choices completely. Alara's phone buzzed, a text from Dante. "New situation, need your assessment, come by when you can." She grabbed her jacket and headed out. Another night, another problem, another chance to prove her value. The waitress who'd saved a crime boss's life was gone. In her place was someone who'd learned to survive in the shadows, to read power dynamics, to operate in the gray spaces between right and wrong. Alara Vance had become exactly what she'd chosen to become. And somewhere in the complexity of that transformation, she'd found not happiness exactly, but purpose, agency, the sense that she mattered in a world that had spent years treating her like she didn't. That was worth something, maybe worth everything. Only time would tell. The harbor lights glittered below as she walked toward whatever new challenge waited. The city was beautiful from this height, beautiful and dangerous, and full of invisible currents that determined who rose and who fell. Alara had learned to navigate those currents, and she'd keep navigating them, one careful decision at a time, for as long as she chose to stay in this world. That choice was hers. It had always been hers. And for now, at least, she was choosing to stay.